Chapter 573. Hey, big brother, this is the first time Xiaoxi's boyfriend came to our house, but you didn't invite us. What's the meaning of this? As soon as they walked into the house, the woman in the lead said bitterly. While talking, she sat straight on the sofa in the living room, and the three people who followed her in did the same. As soon as the two men walked in, they saw the alcohol and cigarettes in the corner. Their eyes couldn't help but light up. They picked up a pack of cigarettes and didn't treat themselves as outsiders at all. They directly opened the pack and took out a box from inside. After opening it, each of them took a cigarette, but the pack of cigarettes wasn't put back, but directly under one of their arms. Another woman went straight to the family and looked at the table with a funny face. What are you doing here? Looking at the appearance of these people, Ai Xiaohui was still young after all, so he couldn't help but stand up with a gloomy face. But before he finished speaking, Ai Xiaoxi's father waved his hand, telling him to shut up. Lao San and Lao Si are here. Have you eaten yet? Looking at the four people in front of him, Ai Xiaoxi's father slowly stood up and nodded to the man with the cigarette and the woman who walked over. We didn't eat at your house, and you didn't invite us to your house either, right? If we didn't hear your neighbor's words, we wouldn't have come. After all, we watched Xiaoxi grow up. We can't let her suffer such a loss, right? Looking at Ai Xiaoxi's father in front of her, the woman who walked over smiled and said softly. Hearing her words, even Jianghai's brows wrinkled. Did these guys come here to pick a fight? At this time, he couldn't help but look at Ai Xiaoxi beside him and found that her face was also very ugly. The one with the cigarette is my father's younger brother, my third uncle. My father has 3 brothers. My first uncle passed away early. My aunt and a cousin have moved to the city. Now, only my father and my third uncle are here. The one sitting on the sofa is my third aunt. The one standing and talking is my father's younger sister, my youngest aunt. The one standing over there is my uncle. Noticing Jianghai's gaze, Ai Xiaoxi began to introduce them. Hearing her words, Jianghai was a little confused. Since they were relatives, why did she sound so rude? If you want to eat, then eat. If you don't want to eat, then leave. Like you said, we didn't invite you here. Ai Xiaoxi's mother put down her chopsticks, stood up, and said coldly when she saw that her old man was embarrassed. Oh, second sister-in-law, why are you throwing a tantrum? We live in the same village and are relatives. We see each other frequently. Your words are hurtful. Hearing Ai Xiaoxi's mother's tough retort, the woman sitting on the sofa couldn't help but say bitterly. This woman was Ai Xiaoxi's third aunt. It seemed that she was really troublesome. So you still know that we are relatives? Relatives, our son-in-law is coming today. What are you doing here? Looking at these people in front of her, Ai Xiaoxi's mother couldn't help but put on a straight face and said unhappily. Ai Xiaoxi's father just stood there. There were some words that he couldn't say. Although it would be seen as being afraid of his wife, if no one in their family said these words, wouldn't they be bullied to death? Hearing Ai Xiaoxi's mother's words, the woman just smiled and said disdainfully. Son-in-law? Where did this son-in-law come from? I don't admit that the guy sitting over there is Xiaoxi's son-in-law. The only person who can be Xiaoxi's husband is young Master Lu. Not just anyone can sit there. Hearing Ai Xiaoxi's mother's words, the third aunt stood up with a sarcastic face and looked down at Jianghai condescendingly. Hearing his words, Jianghai was a bit confused. How could he be involved in this matter? To put it bluntly, this is our family's business. What does it have to do with you? If you want to eat, then sit down. If you don't want to eat, then get lost. Hearing the third aunt's words, Ai Xiaoxi's father's face turned ugly. He slammed the table and said to the 4 people in front of him. I say, second brother, this is your fault. We are your biological brothers and sisters. Would we harm Xiaoxi? Letting Xiaoxi marry young Master Lu is the best choice. It's in our village. It's better to know her background than to let her marry this guy of unknown origin. Let me see what they gave. Oh, Mao Tai? What Zhonghua? Have you seen Mao Tai before? You bought it? You're really puffing yourself up at your own cost. Hearing Ai Xiaoxi's father's words, the woman sneered. Looking at the cigarettes and alcohol on the table, she couldn't help but kick the paper box over there. Hearing her words, Jiang Hai was stunned. Where did their confidence come from? Well, sometimes, the confidence of these people came so suddenly. Without saying a word, these people immediately started to act pretentious. Jiang Hai was a little unprepared. I know better than you what kind of person Lu Lao San is. I also know better than you what kind of bad seed his son is. Stop making sarcastic remarks. You're not marrying your daughter. Let me tell you, this is fine. It's Xiaoxi's choice to marry. It has nothing to do with anyone. Ai Xiaoxi's father waved his hand and said directly. Hearing Ai Xiaoxi's father's words, the four people couldn't help but be speechless. Second brother, I don't want to criticize you, but you should be more sensible. Listen to others' advice and eat your fill. You won't have a good ending if you're so stubborn. At this time, Ai Xiaoxi's third uncle finished smoking a cigarette and directly threw the cigarette but on the ground, completely ignoring the ashtray next to him. Seeing this, Ai Xiaoxi's family was very angry. After throwing away the cigarette butt, he couldn't help but sneer and say to Ai Xiaoxi's father. I'm not hungry right now, and I don't need your help. Scram. Hearing Ai Xiaoxi's third uncle's words, her father's face turned even uglier. This was his biological brother. Not only did biological brothers treat each other with respect, he even came here to threaten him. Fine, you're the second brother. If you tell us to scram, we'll scram. But, brat, you're not my second brother. If I were you, I'd pack up and leave immediately. Otherwise, we can't guarantee your safety. Hearing Ai Xiaoxi's father's words, Ai Xiaoxi's third uncle waved his hand, indicating that it was about time. He directly led the four people out, but before he left, he looked at Jiang Hai and said condescendingly to Jiang Hai. Hearing his words, Jiang Hai laughed. Although he didn't bring bodyguards back this time, he hadn't seen anyone who dared to threaten him like this in a long time. Let's go. Seeing Jiang Hai's disdainful smile, Ai Xiaoxi's third uncle couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. This family is crazy. He didn't say anything and waved his hand to leave. But before he could step out of the door, he was stopped by someone. Wait. Hearing Jiang Hai's voice, the four people couldn't help but stop. They watched as Jiang Hai slowly stood up. What? Have you thought it through? Seeing Jiang Hai stand up and walk over, these people couldn't help but laugh. They thought that Jiang Hai had thought it through. But when he walked over, Jiang Hai directly pulled out the cigarette in his hand. I brought this for my uncle. It has nothing to do with you. And that box, take it out. Throwing the cigarette on the sofa, Jiang Hai said with a gloomy face. Since the other party was riding on his head, Jiang Hai wasn't going to be easy to deal with. What if I don't take it? Hearing that Jiang Hai didn't give him any face, Ai Xiaoxi's third uncle's eyes almost popped out. He straightened his neck and said with a tough face. But unfortunately, before he could finish, Jiang Hai directly lifted him up. Hey, what are you doing? How dare you? Someone, come and kill him. Seeing that Jiang Hai lifted Ai Xiaoxi's third uncle up, the other three people on the other side shouted. But unfortunately, it was useless. Jiang Hai stood there with a height of more than 1.9 meters. These people only shouted but didn't dare to make a move. Jiang Hai held Ai Xiaoxi's third uncle and shook his head, forcibly shaking the box of cigarettes in his body to the ground. The 2 cigarettes you took, I'll treat it as feeding the dogs. Get lost. Seeing that the box of cigarettes fell out, Jiang Hai didn't say anything and directly threw him into the yard. With a bang, the man fell heavily. After Jiang Hai picked up the box of cigarettes, he looked at the 4 people coldly and said in a cold voice. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, the remaining 3 people couldn't help but look away. Fine, I'll consider you ruthless. I hope you can always be this ruthless. Don't run away with your tail between your legs. Just you wait. Second, you actually helped an outsider beat up your own brother. From today onwards, don't blame me for not caring about brotherhood. You're going to be unlucky. At this time, Ai Xiaoxi's third uncle stood up while holding his waist, and then said to Jianghu with a face full of anger. Of course, this was just a clamor before leaving. Jianghu took a step forward and scared the four people. Then, with the help of the other four people, he left Ai Xiaoxi's house with his tail between his legs. Watching the four people leave, Jianghu also turned his head and threw the box of cigarettes on the coffee table. But at this time, the lively dinner table became quiet. That, little Jiang, I'm really sorry that you had to see this scene. Seeing Jianghu looking over, Ai Xiaoxi's mother couldn't help but wipe her hands and said somewhat embarrassedly. It was said that dirty linen should not be aired in public, but now, it's okay, it's okay. Every family has a few bad relatives. It's okay. Hearing Ai Xiaoxi's mother's words, Jianghu hurriedly waved his hand and said with a smile that it's okay. But after hearing his words, Ai Xiaoxi's parents and her brother still frowned. Only Ai Xiaoxi didn't take it to heart because her parents didn't know how powerful Jianghu was. But she knew, so she wasn't worried at all, whether it was official or private. At this time, she was still eating, minding her own business. For the rest of the meal, everyone obviously had no appetite. Jianghu couldn't eat because it was too salty. Ai Xiaoxi's parents and brother couldn't eat because of this incident. How much could Ai Xiaoxi eat? There were a lot of dishes left on the last table. After dinner, Ai Xiaoxi's mother asked Ai Xiaoxi and Jianghu to go out for a walk and enjoy the scenery here, while they cleaned up the table. Chapter 574. Jianghu and Ai Xiaoxi walked side by side on the country road. The breeze blew gently in the fields, lifting Ai Xiaoxi's long hair and brushing it against Jianghu from time to time. Feeling her hair, Jianghu didn't say anything. He just smiled and gently pulled Ai Xiaoxi's long hair, which made her roll her eyes. Your place is really beautiful. Looking at her, Jianghu once again looked at the surrounding scenery. He had to admit that Ai Xiaoxi's hometown was developed into a farmhouse for a reason. Because it was really beautiful. According to the lyrics, there were mountains, rivers, and forests. Although the place was not big, the appearance was quite good. There were nearly 100 families in the whole village, so it was not a small village. To the east of the village was the Yellow Sea, but the beach here was very short and full of gravel. It was difficult to develop it into a bathing place. In addition, there were many reefs, so there was no problem to play in the water here. It was not enough to be a scenic spot, but the scenery of the sea was not discounted here. In addition, in the south of the small village, there was a reservoir. There was a small stream flowing down from there, making the nearby freshwater resources very rich. However, the drinking water here was not very good. After all, the fresh water was mixed with seawater, and the taste was somewhat strange. To the north of the village was a forest. It was because of this forest that the soil erosion of the village was not serious. To the south of the village was a road, and on the other side of the road was a piece of farmland. It was now autumn. The farmland was golden, and it was really beautiful. Several provinces in Wuxia had their own leading agricultural projects. For example, in Jianghu's story, the Heilong province was a big grain-producing province. The output of rice, wheat, and corn was the highest in the country. The annual grain output of the Heilong province alone was enough to feed the people of Wuxia for 3 months. The 3 provinces in the northeast were basically the same. The land of the Songnan Plain was very fertile, unlike the Central Plains, which had lost its fertility after thousands of years of reclamation. Unlike the current northeast, the fertility was quite strong. Aside from the 3 northeastern provinces, Lu province was also a major agricultural province. However, the grain produced was different from the 3 northeastern provinces. Fruits from Lu province might not be good in the south. After all, in Nanyun and the other provinces in the south, the red soil was specially used for growing fruits. Because of this kind of soil, fruits were very sweet and ripened quickly due to the high temperature. However, in the north, Lu province's fruits were the best in the world. Almost all the fruits in the north were transported from Lu province, especially after winter. Lu province's fruits and vegetables were the main source of supply for the north, and at the same time, it was also the source of export. For example, most of the vegetables and fruits from Japan and South Korea are imported from Lu province. Of course, the requirements are much stricter. That's for sure. Haven't you heard of the saying that a person's condition depends on the person's temperament? Look at how pretty I am. You know that our place must be beautiful. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Ai Xiaoxi also smiled. Originally, Jiang Hai's shyness and avoidance when he saw her gradually disappeared after returning here. Looking at Jiang Hai, Ai Xiaoxi said with a smile. Hearing Ai Xiaoxi's words, Jiang Hai smiled, took her hand, and said to her, "Well, my beautiful girl, tomorrow you must remember to tell your old mother not to put so much salt in the dishes." "Yes, I know." Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Ai Xiaoxi also said with a smile. "Speaking of which, that young Master Lu, who the hell is he? Your ex-boyfriend?" Looking at Ai Xiaoxi's appearance, Jiang Hai hesitated for a moment. He felt that it was better to ask clearly, otherwise, it would be a thorn in his heart. "No, I'm not blind. That young Master Lu is called Lu Zheng, the son of Lu Laosan, the village chief of our village. He was a bad guy when he was young. I went to primary school with him and went to junior high school together. When we were in junior high school, he pursued me. Later, after I graduated from junior high school and went to high school in the city, he even asked his father to come to my house to propose marriage, but my father rejected him. Later, after I graduated from high school and went to university, I thought this matter was over, but I didn't expect that when I came back last year when something happened to my family, I met him again. In the end, he kept pestering me. But I heard you ask about him. Are you jealous?" Hearing that Jiang Hai cared about young Master Lu, Ai Xiaoxi naturally didn't think that Jiang Hai was afraid. What a joke! When Jiang Hai was abroad, he dared to hold a gun and fight with the Grey Gang. Why would he be afraid of a village chief? Moreover, she also heard that Jiang Hai had some connections with the higher-ups. Since he wasn't afraid, then Jiang Hai might ask now because he was jealous. "Ah, a little bit." Hearing her words, Jiang Hai rubbed his nose. There was nothing to deny, he was very domineering. "Hee, don't worry, in life, I'm your woman, and in death, I'm also your woman, unless you don't want me anymore." Hearing Jiang Hai's words, to be honest, Ai Xiaoxi was very touched, although she was still a little unsure about her relationship with Jiang Hai. But as she said, unless Jiang Hai didn't want her, otherwise, she was still very willing to be by Jiang Hai's side. "I definitely won't abandon you." Feeling the feelings of the girl beside him, Jiang Hai pulled her into his arms. The two of them walked on the small path in the field, leaning against each other as they walked. At this moment, the two of them seemed to have opened their hearts and thoughts. Next, Ai Xiaoxi told Jiang Hai about her relatives. Ai Xiaoxi's family had a total of 5 relatives. Her father originally had 3 relatives, her eldest uncle, her third uncle, and her youngest aunt. But her eldest uncle passed away in an accident a long time ago. She heard that there was a mining factory nearby, and someone wanted to open a mine and recruit miners. In the end, her eldest uncle went there, but in less than 3 months, the mine collapsed, and her eldest uncle never came back. About 10 years ago, her aunt sold the house and brought her cousin to town. A few years ago, Qian Lai and Qingming would still come back to visit, but 5 or 6 years ago, she stopped coming back. It was said that she had married someone else, and she didn't want to have any contact with this place anymore. As for her third uncle and her youngest aunt, they were 2 idiots and 2 henchmen. Her third uncle responded to the town's call and bought a few cows to raise at home. In a year and a half, he earned about 60 to 70,000 yuan. With this kind of money, he could be considered a high-income group in the small village. The reason why he fawned on village head Lu was because the only milk station in the village was run by village head Lu's nephew. In order to earn more money, what was the point of selling a niece? Especially when her third aunt was on the side. Her sister-in-law was mainly doing this because her sister-in-law was helping out in the grain field of the village head's family. It could be considered as working there. If she didn't curry favor with the village head, who else would she curry favor with? In order to earn more money, these two families were willing to sell anyone, let alone relatives. In addition, Ai Xiaoxi had 3 relatives on her mother's side. They were her eldest uncle, her aunt, and her youngest uncle. They were also very snobbish and stingy. When her mother married into the family, her family didn't agree, so they had a falling out. Over the years, things gradually eased up, but it wasn't over yet. Ai Xiaoxi's family was in trouble. Ai Xiaoxi's mother went to borrow money, and in the end, the 3 families came back with 1,000 yuan. At the same time, they directly blocked Ai Xiaoxi's mother out of the door, as if she didn't exist. They were very snobbish. Because of this, Ai Xiaoxi's relationship with the 5 relatives on her side was quite bad. At most, she didn't have any contact with her uncle and aunt, but on her uncle and aunt's side, there was the problem of pimping. Listening to Ai Xiaoxi's words, Jianghu couldn't help but sigh. The world was really too kind. Hearing what she said, Jianghu couldn't help but think of his relatives. When he was at his most helpless, these people chose to stand by and watch. This was also the reason why Jianghu didn't plan to give them a single cent after he became rich. Even if one of them lent a helping hand, it wasn't to burden the other party too much, even if it was just to do their best. Now that Jianghu was rich, he definitely wouldn't forget their kindness. But they didn't. Sometimes, relatives were like this. When you needed them, they would disappear. When you didn't need them, they would appear. Of course, not all relatives in the world were bad. It was just that Jianghu and Ai Xiaoxi were unlucky to meet such relatives. Now, Ai Xiaoxi had Jianghu's help. And back then, Jianghu could be considered to have sold his body with Qi Li's help. Thinking of this, Jianghu unconsciously thought of Qi Li. Qi Li's frosty face that had never melted in 10,000 years in his heart had unknowingly changed into another appearance. If it's possible, I'd better settle things with Qi Li as soon as possible. If she wasn't my wife, she's still a friend worth making. Although he was holding Ai Xiaoxi in his arms, Jianghu's thoughts had already drifted back to Ai City, where he and Qi Li had made a promise. Just as Jianghu and Ai Xiaoxi were immersed in this warm feeling, a voice suddenly sounded. Xiaoxi. Hearing this voice, Jianghu and Ai Xiaoxi couldn't help but turn around. Then, a young man came into the sight of Jianghu and Ai Xiaoxi. This young man looked to be about 20 years old. He still looked very energetic, but there was a sense of decadence on his body. It was obvious that he was a college student who hadn't graduated yet. When he looked at Ai Xiaoxi, in addition to a trace of joy, there was also annoyance, pity, regret, excitement, and so on. All kinds of emotions were mixed together. The way he looked at Ai Xiaoxi seemed to melt her. But when he looked at Jianghu, his eyes were filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. He couldn't wait to bite Jianghu to death. Chapter 575. Jianghu is very sure that he doesn't know this young man, and this young man is now hating him so much. There is only one possibility, it's because of Ai Xiaoxi. He has to admit that Ai Xiaoxi is very beautiful, plus these days, she has been eating Jianghu's beef every day, plus the company's regular physical classes and so on, making her even more outstanding, so it's natural for her to be envied. This is that Lu something? Looking at the person in front of him, Jianghu asked Ai Xiaoxi who was beside him. No, this is Yu Hongji, my college classmate. Hearing Jianghu's words, Ai Xiaoxi smiled and shook her head, saying very plainly. It can be seen that in her eyes, Yu Hongji has already been put aside, this is just an acquaintance. College, classmate? Oh. I'm just a classmate now? Hearing Ai Xiaoxi's words, Yu Hongji muttered a little absent-mindedly. He really can't imagine that he is just a classmate. If you want to say it like that, there is also a high school classmate. After thinking for a moment, Ai Xiaoxi said to Jianghu again. Let me introduce myself. My name is Yu Hongji, Ai Xiaoxi's boyfriend, used to be, still is, and will be her husband in the future. Walking down the aisle with her, the only person who can give her happiness is me, so I ask you to leave her side, immediately. Taking a deep breath, this person named Yu Hongji looked at Jianghu with a serious face and said. Hearing his words, Jianghu smiled. It seems that he still has a lot of love rivals. Sorry, I don't think you can give Ai Xiaoxi any happiness. Ai Xiaoxi is my woman, used to be, is now, and will naturally be in the future, so I have to trouble you to put away your unwarranted self-confidence. The one who has to leave now is you, not me. Looking at Yu Hongji, Jianghu said in a deep voice. Hearing Jianghu's exact words, Yu Hongji couldn't help but gnash his teeth in anger. Yu Hongji and Ai Xiaoxi were indeed childhood sweethearts. They were classmates in high school. Yu Hongji's grandfather and grandmother were also from this area, but not from this village. Later on, his father was admitted to university and became successful. He went to the capital to work and met Yu Hongji's mother. Later on, they got married and had a child. As the couple was busy with work, they left the child in the care of his grandparents. But after all, living in the countryside wasn't too good, so they bought a house in Wei City and brought the child over. At the same time, they watched Yu Hongji go to school. At that time, Yu Hongji fell in love with Ai Xiaoxi, but Ai Xiaoxi still prioritized her studies. Later, the two of them were admitted to a university in the capital together and became classmates. After another year, they had a foundation of 4 years. Moreover, Yu Hongji's family background and character were both quite good. Hence, Ai Xiaoxi agreed to see how things would go for the time being. However, not long after they started dating, something happened in Ai Xiaoxi's family. Later on, Ai Xiaoxi asked for money. However, Yu Hongji's family didn't intend to lend her money, so the two of them broke up. There was nothing to talk about. It was originally like this. They broke up if they weren't suitable for each other. Even if the earth was gone, no one would care about anything. Just like that saying, after breaking up with her today, he missed her on the first day, on the second day, on the third day, and on the fourth day. League of Legends was really fun. This was reality. No matter who broke up with the other, they could live on. However, Yu Hongji was still a sentimental person. After breaking up, it was obvious that he was hit hard. He looked for Ai Xiaoxi for many days and finally found her. However, he was hit hard by Qi Li. Since then, he had been in a daze. He became grumpy in school and didn't want to interact with his classmates. Every day, other than daydreaming, he would lie in the dorm. At this point, his parents were afraid that he would take things too hard. Therefore, taking advantage of the recent double festival and the school's holidays, he was sent to stay with his grandfather for a few days. As for his grandparents, although they lived in the city when he was in school, after he left, they moved back to their hometown. After eating at home, Yu Hongji strolled around. Unknowingly, he walked to the place Ai Xiaoxi used to tell him about, her hometown. Looking at her beautiful hometown, walking on the path she used to walk on, breathing in the air that used to envelop her, Yu Hongji missed her more and more. He missed her more and more. He couldn't forget her. Just when he really wanted to see her again, she really appeared. However, there was an extra Jianghu by her side. Well, from Yu Hongji's perspective, Jianghu was really a heinous bastard. Two childhood sweethearts, two people who loved each other, had differences because of some trivial family matters. At this time, the evil Jianghu appeared. Like a bad guy, he used money to take everything that belonged to Ai Xiaoxi. Now, he really wanted to roar, 30 years to the west, 30 years to the east, don't bully the young for being poor. Unfortunately, this was reality, not the YY novel he read. The male lead of this novel was not called Yu Hongji, therefore, he was destined to become a shadow, a shadow that belonged exclusively to Jianghu and Ai Xiaoxi. "You Hongji, you better stop fooling around. Your mother was right. We don't belong in the same family, so we're not suitable for each other. So, since we've broken up, let's just be normal classmates. Your feelings for me now, in the end, the one who will be hurt is you, because I really don't like you." Seeing that Yu Hongji and Jianghu were at daggers drawn, Ai Xiaoxi couldn't help but walk to Jianghu's side and take the initiative to hold Jianghu's arm. In her opinion, ever since Yu Hongji's mother said those words, it was impossible for her and Yu Hongji to be together. In this world, there were not so many melodramatic 8 o'clock TV dramas that happened in reality. At least, Ai Xiaoxi would never believe it. Well, with her words, in Yu Hongji's eyes, his identity as the protagonist was confirmed. At this time, a huge Meng 13 was written on his face. Seeing that he was already a little dumbfounded, Jianghu sighed and walked around him with Ai Xiaoxi. Sometimes, love was like this. It was not as beautiful as you imagined. This was also a lesson that Jianghu taught him. Regardless of whether Yu Hongji would write a novel on some website after he went back, writing his bitter experience in order to take revenge on Jianghu. At this time, Jianghu and Ai Xiaoxi had finished shopping and walked back to Ai Xiaoxi's home. As soon as they walked in, Ai Xiaoxi's parents, who were originally talking, stopped talking and then smiled to welcome Jianghu and Ai Xiaoxi. After that, the whole family sat on the sofa and watched TV as if nothing had happened. Of course, when they were watching TV, they also distributed the gifts. The gift for Ai Xiaoxi's father was a cigarette and a bottle of wine. Other than that, the gift for Ai Xiaoxi's mother was a cashmere sweater, while the gift for Ai Xiaoxi's brother was a video game console that Jianghu had specially bought for him. The AIX in charge in Kennecott cost more than 4,000 RMB. Jianghu swiped his card and took it away. There were also a few games inside. Sure enough, Ai Xiaoxi couldn't stay calm when he saw the game console. Ever since he got sick, he couldn't do any work. He couldn't do any physical labor. In addition, he was not willing to study, so he did not continue to go to school. Instead, he recuperated at home. But to be honest, staying at home all day was quite boring. Having a game console was indeed much better. At that moment, he wanted to play with it, but was beaten back by his father. What a joke! His father still wanted to watch TV. Although he was beaten back, he was still very excited. He was much closer to Jianghu than before. He knew that his sister would definitely not buy such a thing for him, so it must have been Jianghu who bought it. "Brother-in-law, we don't have anything to play here on normal days. When you get up tomorrow morning, I'll take you to gather seafood at the beach." Well, a game console was given out, and he didn't even need to pay a change of name. Ai Xiaoxi had already called Jianghu brother-in-law. Gather seafood at the beach? Hearing that, Jianghu couldn't help but be curious, because he didn't know what it was either. "We live by the sea. Every day, the tide rises and falls. Taking advantage of the ebb tide, you can go to the beach and pick up a lot of delicious food, such as some razor clams, small shellfish, crabs, and so on. It's very fun." Seeing that Jianghu seemed to be interested, Ai Xiaoxi also explained to him with a smile. Hearing her words, Jianghu couldn't help but nod. Although he had lived by the sea for a year, he really hadn't gathered seafood at the beach even once, because if he wanted to eat something, he would just go into the sea to get it. It was much more convenient. Secondly, foreigners didn't eat those small shells and so on, so Jianghu really hadn't tried these. Now is the time when crabs are fat. You can go play and catch some small crabs back. I'll make crab sauce for you to eat. Hearing Jianghu's words and seeing that Jianghu was very interested, Ai Xiaoxi's mother couldn't help but say with a smile. Hearing her words, Jianghu also remembered. Indeed, mid-autumn was the time when crabs were the most fat. A few years ago, when his father was still alive, he was willing to bring him to buy some crabs during this time. Of course, they mainly ate river crabs, which were not expensive in Bing City. Later on, they started to eat sea crabs, which were the so-called swimming crabs. But it was accustomed to eat crabs wherever you go. Speaking of which, Jianghu hadn't eaten crab sauce yet. He could try some tomorrow. If it was really delicious, he could also bring some back to Winthrop to eat. This was also good. As the family chatted, the sky unknowingly turned dark. At around 10 o'clock, the family took a shower and went back to sleep. Not sure if it was because she was open-minded or had already treated Jianghu as her son-in-law, Ai Xiaoxi's mother directly let Jianghu and Ai Xiaoxi stay in her room. Of course, the two didn't do anything. The walls here were not so thick. Chapter 576. Brother-in-law, did you sleep well last night? Looking at Jianghu coming out of the room, Ai Xiaoxi, who was squatting by the drainage ditch outside the yard and brushing his teeth, asked with a smile on his face. Hearing his words, Jianghu also stopped yawning and then smiled brightly. Did you sleep well last night? It shouldn't be considered a good sleep. Although we are in the countryside, the air here is quite good. It is quiet at night, and the quality of sleep is quite good. It is much better than when I was in high school in the city. Seeing Jianghu's slightly embarrassed expression, Ai Xiaoxi continued to speak. Hearing his words, Jianghu did not say anything. To be honest, he did not sleep well last night. At 10 o'clock at night, he hugged Ai Xiaoxi and went to sleep. Her soft and fragrant body was in his arms, but next door was her parents. Her bed was made of wood. Perhaps it had been in disrepair for a long time. When she got on the bed, there were some noises. Jianghu didn't dare to make any moves. But an energetic young man hugging a beautiful girl and doing nothing for the whole night was not a good night's sleep. In a daze, he did not know when he fell asleep. Because this place was located in the east of Wuxia. Although Wuxia was a big place, there was only one time zone, which was Beijing time. Therefore, it was inevitable that the sun would rise early in the east. During the hottest time of summer, the sun would rise at about 3 o'clock in the morning in Bing City. It was almost the same here. At 3 o'clock, the sun rose. The chickens in the village began to crow. When the chickens started to crow, they woke up the dogs. At 4 o'clock, the dogs started to bark. When the dogs barked, they woke up the cows. At 5 o'clock, the villagers who were busy with farming had already woken up. They were herding the cows and going to the fields. Jianghu calculated that he had only slept for about 3 hours. It was still a light sleep. Now he was very proud of his foresight. There were chickens, dogs, and cows in his manor, but no matter if it was chickens or cows, they were all far away from where he lived. At least they wouldn't wake him up in the morning. Unlike now, it was too torturous. Jianghu went outside to enjoy the breeze for a while. After calming down temporarily, he returned to his room, took a cup of hot water, and started brushing his teeth. Originally, there was nothing in Xiaoxi's house. But since Ai Xiaoxi got money from Jianghu, her family's life improved a lot. Although the TV and fridge were still the same, the original earthen stove had been replaced with natural gas. There was also a water heater and a tub in the bathroom. At least he could bathe all year round. He could wash his face and brush his teeth in the morning and wash his feet at night. There was no problem. This was indeed a lot more convenient. After Jianghu took the cup of hot water, he didn't brush his teeth outside like Ai Xiaoxi. Instead, he brushed his teeth in the bathroom. After everything was cleaned up, Jianghu appeared in the living room. Seeing that Jianghu had woken up, Ai Xiaoxi's mother also said a few words to Jianghu. The general idea was to ask if he slept well last night and why he didn't sleep a little longer. Then she went to the kitchen to get busy. Ai Xiaoxi's house didn't have much land. The land had been rented out. Anyway, they didn't rely on the land to make money. Seeing that Jianghu didn't seem to be in good spirits, Ai Xiaoxi's mother asked him to rest. Then she went into the kitchen, saying that she would wake up to make noodles for Jianghu. Of course, AI Xiaoxi had secretly told her last night to make the dishes bland. Otherwise, Jianghu wouldn't have anything to eat here. Brother-in-law, let's play the game console. Seeing that his mother went into the kitchen, AI Xiaoxi ran in with a smile. Looking at Jianghu, who was still in a daze, he took the initiative to say. He wanted to play last night, but unfortunately, he didn't. Now, no matter what, he wanted to play. Who knows if this TV can be played? Let's study it. Hearing his words, Jianghu rubbed his face and stood up. Since he had nothing to do, he also stood up and started to play with AI Xiaoxi. He had to admit that AI Xiaoxi was lucky. Although the resolution of this big-headed TV was very poor, the several plugs were quite complete. In the end, they installed the game console. After installing it, they connected to the Wi-Fi, logged into their accounts, and started to play games. The game they were playing now was called Halo. This game was quite popular now, whether it was on the game console or the PC platform. This game was about the war between humans in the future and the Star Alliance, an alliance of races based on Orion's religion. This game was very big. It was a first-person shooter game. In the past, Jianghu couldn't play this kind of game because he had 3D dizziness, but later on, he often watched 3D TV at home. In addition, he also played games a lot. Later on, he slowly got used to it. Now, when he fought, he was naturally much better than AI Xiaoxi. When AI Xiaoxi finally woke up, the two of them were already playing crazily. They were constantly yelling in the living room. Be quiet, you guys. You woke me up. AI Xiaoxi said with some dissatisfaction as she rubbed her messy hair. Perhaps it was because AI Xiaoxi had been very imposing since young. So when he heard AI Xiaoxi's words, AI Xiaoxi's voice instantly became softer. Right, didn't you say that you were going to gather seafood today? Is the thing ready? Seeing that AI Xiaoxi became obedient, AI Xiaoxi sat next to Jianghu, casually picked up the manual of the disc from the table, and said while reading it. Yeah, didn't you say that you were going to gather seafood today? Shouldn't this thing be done early? When he heard AI Xiaoxi's words, Jianghu remembered. Didn't AI Xiaoxi say that he was going to gather seafood? Why is he sitting here and playing games now? Gathering seafood is not urgent, brother-in-law. Brother-in-law, you are dying. AI Xiaoxi couldn't help but laugh when he heard Jianghu's words. This also made Jianghu temporarily turn his mind back to the game, but he was still a little puzzled. Gathering seafood depends on the time. According to the time of the lunar calendar, the time of gathering seafood is also different. From the first day to the 30th day, the time of the lowest tide is different every day. Today is the 15th day. The best time to gather seafood should be around 11 o'clock. If we go there at 9 o'clock, just in time for the tide to fall. If it falls here, we can gather seafood at the back until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. After all, they grew up by the sea. Seeing Jianghu's doubts, AI Xiaoxi explained to Jianghu. Hearing her words, Jianghu couldn't help but let out an "oh." To be honest, he really didn't know these things. In fact, it had been shown on TV before, like Animal World or something. The moon was useless to many people. After all, it was just a satellite of the Earth. The reason why it was bright was because of the refraction of the sun after it shone on the Earth. Such a planet really didn't seem very important. But in nature, the moon was not ordinary because it was related to the time of the tides. The tides were related to the ocean currents, and the ocean currents were related to the plankton in the sea. The plankton was at the bottom of the biological chain. If the plankton were destroyed, the biological chain would be destroyed, and the Earth would be finished. Therefore, the moon was actually very important. After listening to AI Xiaoxi's words, Jianghu also understood some things. He had been running the fishery for a year, but he really didn't pay attention to these things. But he just followed AI Xiaoxi and AI Xiaoxi's instructions. The two siblings knew these things very well. After playing for a while, Ai Xiaoxi's mother started to eat noodles for breakfast. People in Lu province love to eat noodles. Lu province's steamed buns, and noodles were also famous in the country. Of course, the most famous noodles in the country were from Shaanxi, but the noodles here were also quite good. Ai Xiaoxi's mother made braised noodles. Maybe because she listened to Ai Xiaoxi's words, the braised noodles this time were very light. It was braised with lean meat, wood ear, and daylily. It tasted very good. Jianghu ate 2 big bowls of noodles before putting down his bowl. Looking at Jianghu eating happily, Ai Xiaoxi's mother started to think about how to cook tonight. It seems like she would need to follow this taste. After eating breakfast, Jianghu and Ai Xiaoyi played a game for a while. Ai Xiaoyi's mother was very happy. Then, at around 8:30, Ai Xiaoxi left with Jianghu and Ai Xiaoxi. Each of them carried a small bucket with some tools in it. There were a total of 4 tools. One looked like a hook used to make a fire in winter when they lived in a bungalow when they were young, a small curved shovel, a very sharp awl like a screwdriver, and a very thin kite string. These 4 tools had their own uses. The hook was used to hook things, such as the small crabs they wanted to catch. When the crabs got into the reef cave, they had to use this thing to pull them out. The small curved shovel was used to catch razor clams that got into the beach. The small shovel was used to dig out the shellfish attached to the reef. The last one was used to tie the crabs after catching them. Otherwise, these crabs might run out of the bucket, and all their efforts would be in vain. After everything was ready, Jianghu and the others went to the beach on the east side of the village. Because there were a lot of reefs and rocks on the beach, they couldn't walk barefoot on it. If they were not careful, they would cut their feet. Jianghu and the others walked with shoes on. When they came over, there were already some people on the beach here. It seems that today was the Mid-Autumn Festival, so there were a lot of villagers who came to gather seafood. Jianghu and the others found a slightly remote place and walked up. Now that the sea had just begun to recede, most of the sand hadn't been exposed yet. So their initial goal was still the reef. Chapter 577. This thing is called sea rainbow, and it tastes good after cooking. Looking at the dense black shells on the reef, Ai Xiaoxi explained to Jianghu with a smile. Hearing her words, Jianghu also started digging, because he had seen this thing before. Sea rainbow, its scientific name is mussel, is a very common shellfish in China. It can also be said that it is one of the cheapest seafood besides flower clams. Basically, it is only a few RMB per 500 kilograms. In Bing City, it can be sold for 5 renminbi per 500 kilograms. This kind of shellfish was very fat and tasted good. It was very nutritious. Although the best kind of shellfish was more expensive than the average sea rainbow, it was not particularly expensive. This kind of creature did not have a shell when it was first born, so it could move freely. But when it meets a suitable environment, it will start to live on rocks or other hard things. They lived a fixed life for the rest of their lives, so reefs and the like were the best choices for them. Looking at the shells in front of him, Jianghu, to be honest, had not eaten for a long time. He also began to dig with a small shovel. This thing was very hard, so it was not easy to dig it out. However, Jianghu's divine strength was invincible. In less than half an hour, he had dug almost half a bucket. Seeing him digging so much, Ai Xiaoxi and Ai Xiaoyi immediately stopped Jianghu. Under Jianghu's puzzled gaze, Ai Xiaoxi could not help but roll her eyes at him. Why are you digging so much? We are here to catch razor clams and crabs. These things can be found at any time. Hearing Ai Xiaoxi's words, Jianghu could not help but touch his nose. Yes, this kind of food is very common and not expensive. So the 3 of them stopped and picked up Jianghu's half bucket of sea rainbow. They kept the big ones and threw away the small ones. But even so, there is still about 1/3 of the bucket left. Together with the other 2, there is about 10 kilograms of sea rainbow. At this moment, the seawater on the surface of the sea also receded. Jianghu and the AI siblings also stepped onto the sandy beach and began to look for their main dish today, those crabs and other delicious things. Soon, AI Xiaohui made a discovery. After a shout, he directly used the curved shovel to stab into the sand. When it was pulled out, it brought out a lot of sand, but in the middle of the sand, there was a long pale yellow shellfish. Wow, what a big one! Looking at the shellfish, Jianghu immediately ran towards it and removed the sand from its body. Then he picked it up. It was a razor clam. Jianghu wasn't unfamiliar with it. Bing City also likes to eat this thing, and that's why they usually call it shaoren xian. Compared to normal shellfish, this type of razor clam is bigger and has more meat. Its shell is also thinner and does not need to be weighed. That's why it is very popular in the seafood market. This is a bamboo razor clam. It's the biggest one among all the razor clams. This one is about 12 centimeters long. It seems like this piece of bamboo razor clam is quite good. After taking the razor clam from Jianghu, AI Xiaohui smiled and washed it with seawater. Then he threw it into his bucket and explained to Jianghu. Then he explained to Jianghu how to find the razor clams. But according to him, Jianghu searched several places but didn't find any. Instead, it was the AI siblings, AI Xiaoxi and AI Xiaohui, who found a lot of these things. Before long, they had already found 5 or 6 genes. Seeing that he really didn't have the talent to catch razor clams, Jianghu looked at other things. After high tide, there would always be a large number of creatures on the beach. There were all kinds of things. In addition to all kinds of shellfish, there were also small fish, shrimps, starfish, and so on. It can be said that all the small creatures in the sea would rush up here. Jianghu couldn't deal with the razor clams under the beach, but dealing with the creatures on the beach wasn't a problem. It didn't take long for Jianghu to pick up a lot of shellfish and 2 starfish. Jianghu couldn't eat these starfish. Most people wouldn't be able to eat them, but it was still good to play with them. Looking at the tentacles of this thing, Jianghu thought. If people with trypophobia saw this, they would be scared and break out in a cold sweat. This thing was indeed a trap. Just as Jianghu was happily picking up things, he accidentally kicked away a stone. Then, a crab the size of a child's fist suddenly jumped out from under the stone. Seeing this thing, Jianghu's spirit was lifted. He didn't forget his purpose for coming here. It wasn't for these small shells, but for the crab. Jianghu's speed was much faster than this crab. He stretched out his body and instantly pulled one of the crab's legs. However, this crab was wild and fierce. When its leg was pulled, it instantly turned its body and its 2 huge pincers tried to clamp Jianghu's hand. However, Jianghu's speed was faster. He instantly threw it away. When he caught it, he had already pinched its shell with 2 fingers. This time, it didn't have a chance to clamp Jianghu. Look, I caught a crab. Can this be eaten? Holding the crab, Jianghu said to AI Xiaoxi and AI Xiaohui in the distance. Hearing Jianghu's words, the siblings also rushed over. After approaching, AI Xiaoxi clearly saw the appearance of the crab and said to Jianghu, "Oh, this is a sand crab. It can be eaten. You are really good. This little thing runs very fast." Sand crab can be said to be a very ancient crab. It originated in the Cretaceous period, the same dynasty as the dinosaurs. It developed and grew in the 3rd era. Now, this kind of crab can be found all over the world. In Wuxia, there are more than 70 kinds. Brother-in-law, continue to work hard. We will catch the razor clams. We will leave the crab to you. Seeing Jianghu catch a crab so easily, AI Xiaohui was very excited and said with a happy face. With his physical fitness, he couldn't catch a crab except for using his hands. So when he came, he didn't plan to catch any crabs. But now, Jianghu could easily catch it with his bare hands. This made his eyes light up. This was an unexpected gain. No problem. Hearing his words, Jiang Hai also smiled. With the help of AI Xiaoxi, he tied up the crab with a rope. Then, Jiang Hai no longer cared about the small shells on the beach and began to turn over the stones. It turned out that there were indeed a lot of crabs here. After turning over the stones, they often came out early. Basically, after turning over 3 or 5 stones, a sand crab would come out and escape. However, Jiang Hai let go of the small ones. He only caught the bigger ones. But even so, it didn't take long for Jiang Hai to catch a lot of sand crabs. These small crabs ran very fast, but Jiang Hai was faster. In terms of speed, these small crabs were still a little worse. However, just as Jiang Hai was happily catching the crabs, he suddenly turned over a stone and found that there was a crab under the stone. But unlike the sand crabs he caught, this crab was bluish-black and had a particularly big claw. After seeing Jiang Hai, it didn't escape like the sand crabs. Instead, it raised its pincers as if it wanted to fight with Jiang Hai. Hey! What kind of game is this? Looking at the crab in front of him, Jiang Hai directly stretched out his hand and picked it up. He looked at it carefully. It looked so strange. One pincer was big and the other was small. It also seemed to have some aggressive tendencies. What the hell is this? This is a fiddler crab. It's also a type of sand crab, but it has a different classification. It's also edible. Just as Jiang Hai was feeling a little strange, Ai Xiaoxi also came over. Looking at the small crab in Jiang Hai's hand, she couldn't help but smile and explain to Jiang Hai. At this time, her small bucket was almost half filled with razor clams. It was about 5 or 6 pounds. She didn't need to catch too many. After all, Ai Xiaoxi was still catching. So after seeing some gains, she came to Jiang Hai's side and was responsible for helping Jiang Hai tie up the crabs. Although these crabs weren't big, it would be troublesome if they escaped. Hearing her words, Jiang Hai nodded. He knew another species. Although Jiang Hai had a manor and a fishing ground, he didn't know many crabs. Except for the swimming crabs he used to eat, he knew very little about crabs. He only knew about spider crabs, king crabs, and river crabs in his manor. He had seen all kinds of crabs before, especially sand crabs. They could be found all over the world. But he didn't think about eating them before, so he didn't want to know more about them. Now that he looked at them, there were a lot of crabs. After helping Ai Xiaoxi tie up the crab, Jiang Hai continued to search. After finding the first fiddler crab, Jiang Hai found a few more fiddler crabs. But most of them were sand crabs. But after searching for a while, he found another kind of crab. This is a big-eyed crab. Looking at the crab that Jiang Hai picked up, it was obviously bigger than the sand crab and the fiddler crab. Ai Xiaoxi also introduced it to him. Although Ai Xiaoxi was now living in the imperial capital, this was the place where she grew up. She was very familiar with every blade of grass, every tree, every living thing, and every species here. Maybe she couldn't name them, but she could accurately know what they were called in the local language. It was said that working together was less tiring, especially when Jiang Hai was quite interested in this matter. Unknowingly, his bucket was filled with crabs. Ai Xiaoxi's bucket was also filled with a lot of crabs. Sister, brother-in-law, it's almost time to go back. Just as Jiang Hai and Ai Xiaoxi were happily catching crabs, Ai Xiaoxi's voice sounded. Only then did they notice that they had been catching seafood for more than 3 hours. At this time, it was already 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Just now, he was so focused on catching that he didn't feel hungry. Now, looking at the time, the 2 bowls of noodles that Jiang Hai ate in the morning had already been digested. Looking at his harvest, Jiang Hai's face was brimming with a proud smile. Chapter 578. Mom, we're back. Ai Xiaoxi shouted as soon as he walked into the Ai family's courtyard. Hearing Ai Xiaoxi's words, Ai Xiaoxi's mother, who was busy in the kitchen, came out. Oh, you caught a lot. Hurry up and separate them. pour water and empty the sand. We can eat it tonight. Looking at the 3 barrels of seafood, Ai Xiaoxi's mother couldn't help but shout excitedly. Then she specially prepared some large basins and threw the seafood into them. There was a large basin for shellfish. Except for razor clams, there were all kinds of shellfish. There was a large basin for razor clams and a large basin for all kinds of crabs. Whether it was crabs or shellfish, they could breathe in water. Although it wasn't seawater, they could still live for a while. After dividing the seafood, Ai Xiaoxi's mother also put some things in the basins. The basin for crabs was filled with salt, and the 2 basins for shellfish were filled with cooking oil. Jianghu knew that the cooking oil was for these creatures to spit out sand. These sea creatures lived in the sand. Perhaps others couldn't see it, but the things they ate were mixed with a lot of sand. If they were caught and eaten directly, it was almost the same as eating soil. Therefore, it was necessary to put some salt and cooking oil in these basins to let them spit out sand before cooking. After everything was done, Jianghu and the others sat there and ate lunch. This lunch was quite sumptuous because of Jianghu. Although they were all home-cooked dishes, the main meal was still to be eaten in the evening. Because the relatives in the family were a bit busy, Ai Xiaoxi's family didn't have many people coming to visit. After these things were done, the dishes were on the table. Jianghu and the others picked up their chopsticks and ate. This time, Jianghu was able to eat. It was a full meal. Although it was still a little salty, Shandong cuisine was mainly salty and fresh. This level of saltiness was already acceptable to Jianghu. According to Ai Xiaoxi, her mother only used 1/3 of the usual amount of salt this time. In other words, she usually used 3 spoonfuls of salt, but today she only used 1 spoonful, which suited Jianghu's taste. During lunch, Jianghu and the others enjoyed themselves to the fullest. Jianghu especially accompanied Ai Xiaoxi's father for a drink. After lunch, it was already 3:00 in the afternoon. Ai Xiaoxi's father drank a little too much, so he went to sleep for a while. For Jianghu, drinking beer now was just like tasting the flavor. It's simply impossible to make him drink too much. His physical fitness is 4 times that of an ordinary person. Even if it's just his original alcohol capacity, drinking 30 to 50 bottles of beer won't be a lot. And after drinking 30 to 50 bottles, Jianghu has already recovered. Of course, it was impossible for him to drink 30 to 50 bottles in Ai Xiaoxi's house. He drank 6 bottles, and Ai Xiaoxi's father drank 6 bottles. Ai Xiaoxi's father lay down on the bed, while Jianghu continued to play games with Ai Xiaoyi. As for Ai Xiaoxi, she was manually making mooncakes with her mother. Jianghu had to admit that Ai Xiaoxi's mother was really good at everything. Unknowingly, the evening lights were turned on, and the sky outside gradually darkened. This was the annoying thing about the eastern provinces. The sky brightened and darkened very early. At around 6:00, the mooncakes were already prepared. Ai Xiaoxi's mother also went to prepare dinner for the reunion dinner. As for Jianghu and Ai Xiaoyi, they moved the table to the courtyard outside. Today, they deliberately locked the door, afraid that someone would come and cause trouble. But fortunately, it seemed that these people were celebrating at home. They didn't have the leisure and time to cause trouble for Jianghu. The first things on the table were mooncakes and eggs. The mooncakes were filled with bean paste. This was Jianghu's favorite. It was different from the ones bought outside. The mooncakes in Ai Xiaoxi's house were freshly made, so the outer layer was still very soft. It tasted very good. As for eggs, this was a popular way to eat in Lu province. In most places in Huaxia, mooncakes were eaten during the Mid-Autumn Festival. In Lu province, in addition to mooncakes, they also ate reunion eggs. After all, they were all round. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Jianghu also ate an egg with Ai Xiaoyi. Then, he ate a piece of mooncake. This was considered a festival. After that, the main course was the meal. Not sure if it was because of Jianghu's arrival, Ai Xiaoxi's mother prepared a lot of delicious food. She didn't know if it was because of Jiang Hai's arrival, but Ai Xiaoxi's mother had prepared a lot of delicious food. She had prepared prawns, tiger skin pork, braised pork ribs, pickled cucumbers with vegetables, kung pao diced pork, crispy pork, steamed yellow croaker, of course, farm-raised tofu, spicy stir-fry made with the razor clams they caught today, and a big bowl of winter melon and sea rice soup. These 10 dishes meant that they were perfect. But in addition, there were some snacks. The shellfish were directly boiled in a pot and eaten. As for the crabs, most of them were cleaned and marinated into crab sauce. But there were still some that had their shells and gills removed. Then, they were wrapped in flour and fried by Ai Xiaoxi's mother. They looked really beautiful. Jiang Hai didn't lack meat, but he still had a special liking for these small crabs that he caught himself. He picked one up and took a bite. With this bite, Jiang Hai couldn't help but let out an "n" sound. The shell of this small crab was completely fried and crispy. The shell that was wrapped in flour broke with a gentle bite. The crab meat inside was tender and smooth. The most important thing was that the crab meat was now yellow. The so-called yellow was the seed of the crab. The male crab was called cream, and the female crab was called yellow. But it was hard to distinguish. In this season, both male and female crab were present. But since this was mentioned, then let's just say something. The female crab was yellow, which referred to the female crab's ovaries. The seeds inside were the small crabs. As for the male crab's cream, cough. Some things were like red wine and noodles in Shaanxi province. It was delicious if you didn't want to eat it directly. But once you thought about it, you couldn't eat it. Fortunately, Jiang Hai had already overcome this in his heart. He didn't care about eating this thing. After all, he was most willing to eat kidney in the past. It wasn't like he hadn't eaten bombs before, so his resistance to this was slightly stronger. These small crabs, although small, were indeed very fat now. If they were cooked and eaten with meat, there wouldn't be much left. But after being fried and stuffed into his mouth and chewing, the taste was really incomparable. The outside was crispy, and the meat inside was soft and smooth. Together with the yellow stuff, he didn't know if it was cream or yellow. The taste of flour, the taste of yellow, and the taste of meat made him subconsciously move his chin to chew. The more he chewed, the more delicious and fragrant it was. The more he chewed, the more flavorful it was. While eating these small crabs and drinking wine, the moon was already high in the sky. When Jiang Hai came back to his senses, the plate of fried crabs was already finished. He had to admit that the Mid-Autumn Festival in September was a good time to eat seafood. Hee, if I knew that little Jiang liked to eat, would have fried more. We have enough here. Looking at Jiang Hai eating almost all the small crabs in the pot, Ai Xiaoxi's mother smiled and said, "It's not that bad." They could eat these small crabs often here, so they had already eaten enough. This was especially true for the siblings, Ai Xiaoxi and Ai Xiaohui. When they were young, they would often catch these small crabs and ask their mother to fry them. These were the best snacks back then, so now, they only had a taste of 2 crabs. They had already had enough of them. Ai Xiaoxi's parents were already sick of eating them, so more than 90% of the 4 to 5 caddies of crabs in the plate went into Jiang Hai's stomach. On the other hand, Jiang Hai tasted the dishes cooked by Ai Xiaoxi's mother a few times, but he didn't eat too much. This was because these small crabs were too delicious for Jiang Hai. He planned to learn it, and then when he went back, he would catch some small crabs and cook them. The small crabs in his manner would definitely taste better. Thinking of this, Jiang Hai couldn't help but think about catching some small crabs back tomorrow. Let's catch some more tomorrow. These small crabs are really delicious. Jiang Hai said to Ai Xiaoxi and Ai Xiaohui as he picked up the crab's feet in the plate. For a foodie, it was impossible to stop him from eating good food. Okay, we will continue to catch some crabs tomorrow, but the time will be pushed back by an hour. After hearing Jiang Hai's words, Ai Xiaoxi did some calculations and said to Jiang Hai, Today was September 27th, and in order to avoid the peak period, they booked a flight back to Bing City on October 1st. There were still 3 days left, and it was enough for them to have some fun here. As for why the time was pushed back by an hour? Naturally, it was because of the time of the tide. People like them who lived by the sea all year round naturally knew when the tide would rise and when it would recede. The time to catch crabs could only be chosen when the tide was low. Oh, then we will have to wait until around 10 o'clock. After thinking for a while, Jianghu said to Ai Xiaoxi. Well, it's about 10 o'clock. But, can I trouble Shaojiang tomorrow? Can you send me to town before you go to the beach? After hearing Jianghu's words, Ai Xiaoxi's father took a deep breath and said to Jianghu. Hearing her father's words, Jianghu naturally had nothing to say. What's wrong with that? No problem at all. What business do you have in town? Looking at Ai Xiaoxi's father, Jianghu agreed and then asked him curiously. He didn't have any work to do recently, so why would he go to town? The chives at home are ripe again. I am going to sell the ones that I can't eat in town. Otherwise, they will rot in the fields. Hearing Jianghu's words, Ai Xiaoxi's father said with a smile. Jianghu really didn't know much about these things. But after all, he also grew vegetables at home. He knew that chives could grow many times a year. Although Jianghu didn't care about the money from the chives, Ai Xiaoxi's father was obviously different from Jianghu. Chapter 579. I'll have to trouble you again tomorrow. My dad is really too much. He still insists on selling chives. Night fell quietly. It was always early to go to bed in the countryside. Unknowingly, it was getting late. Jianghu and Ai Xiaoxi were ready to sleep. Lying on the bed, Jianghu hugged Ai Xiaoxi, who was only wearing pajamas, not even a singlet or underwear, and listened to her words. Let's not talk about trouble between us, okay? You're really disobedient. Listening to Ai Xiaoxi's polite words, Jianghu couldn't help but roll his eyes at her. Then, he directly spanked her but with his hand. Feeling the tempting touch, Jianghu also felt a little restless. Noticing that Jianghu's hand changed from spanking to touching, Ai Xiaoxi's face suddenly turned red. It must be very uncomfortable to hold it in these 2 days. Feeling Jianghu's movements, Ai Xiaoxi leaned over and whispered in Jianghu's ear. Stop fooling around. Your parents are right next to us. They'll hear it. Ai Xiaoxi blew into Jianghu's ear as she spoke, making Jianghu's heart itch even more. But the problem was that it was really not good to do anything now. It was too awkward. I know. Then let me help you. Hearing Jianghu's words, Ai Xiaoxi also knew that it was not the time to use real swords and spears, but she still had a way to make Jianghu feel more comfortable. Especially when Jianghu cared so much about her and her family. Under Jianghu's gaze, Ai Xiaoxi slowly leaned over. Feeling the different touch, Jianghu's eyebrows also raised. The night was quiet. The next morning, Jianghu was not awakened by chickens, dogs, and cows. It was rare that he was not woken up by chickens, dogs, and cows. He slept until 6 o'clock in the morning. Don't think that 6 o'clock was very early. Jianghu and the others went to bed at 9 o'clock last night. Even if they were delayed by an hour because of something, they went to bed around 10 o'clock. Sleeping until 6 o'clock, 8 hours of basic sleep was guaranteed. After a simple workout at the entrance, they ate the big steamed buns that Ai Xiaoxi's mother specially made for them in the morning. Together with salted vegetables and porridge, they tasted pretty good. As for the even better crab sauce, they would have to wait for 3 or 4 days. When Jianghu and the others left, they were almost able to eat, but now it was impossible. After eating breakfast and resting for a while, around 7 in the morning, Jianghu took Ai Xiaoxi, Ai Xiaohui, Ai Xiaoxi's father, and 2 baskets of chives to the nearby town. As soon as he got in the car, Ai Xiaohui showed his interest in cars. What? You want to drive? Looking at him touching left and right, Jiang Hai asked him with a smile. Hey, I like it very much. Brother-in-law, you know my body's condition, so I can't do any heavy work. Dad's craftsmanship has no chance to be passed down. Because the school has been delayed for a year, I'm not interested in going back. So I'm thinking about what I can do. There are drivers in the small village, and I think I might be able to do it. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Ai Xiaowei was a little embarrassed. He was indeed quite helpless. Although the leukemia in his body had been cured, he would have a lifetime of illness. However, he ended up with a lifetime of soreness and weakness. After all, the bone marrow was not his, but a transplant. Even if they were originally compatible, it was not a big deal that his body was weak and unable to exert strength. It would even affect his lifespan. Jiang Hai could have cured him with Jiang Hai's spiritual energy. But although Jiang Hai's relationship with Ai Xiaoxi is very close now, his relationship with Ai Xiaowei, he still needs to examine it again. Jiang Hai is not a saint. He can't bear to see others suffer, especially when it is related to his spiritual energy. He must be careful. Then go and get a driver's license. Brother-in-law will buy you one. However, although Jiang Hai was reluctant to part with the spiritual qi, other than spiritual qi, Jiang Hai didn't care about money. Moreover, he didn't call him brother-in-law for nothing. Jiang Hai himself can't buy a good car for him. After all, he has to be a driver. A driver's car costs more than 100,000 yuan, so Jiang Hai doesn't care. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Ai Xiaowei's eyes suddenly lit up. Brother-in-law, I have finished the test. I got my driver's license last month. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Ai Xiaowei also said with some eagerness. Since he found out that he can't do any work and has no interest in school, he has been thinking of a way out. In the vicinity of the small village, there are indeed a lot of drivers. Driving to the city or town is 10 yuan per person in the town and 50 yuan per person in the city. If you rent a car for 150 yuan, you can sit 4 people. Excluding the gas, you can earn at least half of the profit. For him, this is an out-and-out good business. The only thing left is that he doesn't have a car. Ahem, Xiao Jiang, don't spoil him. A car costs a lot. However, hearing Jiang Hai's words, Ai Xiaoxi's father immediately interrupted. What a joke, Jiang Hai lent their family hundreds of thousands, and they don't have the money to pay it back. Now, he wants to buy a car for Ai Xiaowei. What a joke. Although their family doesn't have much money, they always owe others. As a father, he doesn't feel comfortable. Although Ai Xiaoxi's father is a little henpecked, the men in Lu province are also a little male chauvinistic. He doesn't want to take advantage of Jiang Hai, no matter how rich Jiang Hai is. Dad, it's okay. Since Ai Xiaowei doesn't want to go to school, he should find a job. He can drive a car. Cars are cheap now. Hearing Ai Xiaoxi's father's words, Jiang Hai also smiled. Since he treats Ai Xiaoxi as his woman, then he won't be too stingy. A car costs more than 100,000 yuan. Jiang Hai's cow leg is worth this much. Ai, then let's buy it for him. We still have some money left at home. Hearing that Jiang Hai still wants to buy a car for Ai Xiaowei, Ai Xiaoxi's father can't help but feel a little depressed. The family doesn't have money, he really can't straighten his back as a father-in-law. After giving Ai Xiaowei a look, Jiang Hai quickly changed the topic and asked about this episode. Buying a car, they can buy it after going to the town. After buying it, Ai Xiaoxi's father will have to accept it even if he doesn't want to. Sure enough, as soon as the topic changed, Ai Xiaoxi's father also began to tell Jiang Hai about the situation of this town. Although this place belongs to the urban-rural fringe, it is not really under the management of Wei City. Every city has a district under it, and the so-called management place of these places is the town. Jiang Hai doesn't know what the town is called. However, under the guidance of Ai Xiaoxi's father, they quickly turned into the town. This town is not very big. There are no high-rise buildings in the town. Most of the houses are 7-story buildings, not high-rise residential areas. Although the town has all the essentials, it is indeed very small. On the street outside the town is the so-called market. In the countryside, there is a time limit for going to the market. Generally, it is on the first day of the lunar calendar, or on the 5th day of the lunar calendar, or on the 11th day of the lunar calendar, or on the 25th day of the lunar calendar. But because people nowadays don't really look at the lunar calendar, so they go according to the lunar calendar. The people in this town go to the market on the 6th day of the lunar calendar. When Jianghu's car arrived here, the market here is already crowded. Many residents nearby, or people from other villages, will come here to buy things. The residents come here to buy things mainly because the things here are fresh, and the people from other villages come here to buy things that they usually use but have no place to buy. For example, there were clothes, shoes, cloth, toys, and so on. After all, this was a market. Meat, vegetables, and fruits were not the only things sold here. There were also stalls for daily necessities. He parked his car outside the market. Jianghu and the others helped Ai Xiaoxi's father take the 2 baskets of leeks and found the area where vegetables are sold in the market. After casually circling the area, they are ready to start selling. Because they only sell leeks, it is not very troublesome. After looking here for a while, Jianghu winked at Ai Xiaoxi and Ai Xiaohui, and the 3 of them said that they want to go out for a stroll. Ai Xiaoxi's father was quite busy here, so there was no need for him to tie down the 3 young people. Therefore, he let them go out to play. The 3 of them walked around the bazaar for a while, then went outside. After getting in the car, they drove to a car dealership in the small town. The car dealership in the small town couldn't be called a 4S shop, because it is not a car shop of one brand, but many brands. Instead of a car shop, it is more like a hodgepodge of cars. It is understandable, because the people who buy cars here are basically the people in the town, or the residents in the nearby villages. They don't know much about cars, and they don't need to go out to buy a car. The practicality of buying a car is the most important thing. There are only 3 or 4 car shops like this in the town, and Jianghu's shop is the biggest one. After parking the car, the 3 of them walked in. The first thing they saw is a lot of half-size cars and vans. Indeed, in the countryside, half-size cars and vans are more popular. Half-size cars are the so-called miniaturized cars. It is not the kind of big truck, but it is still a kind of truck. Usually, it can transport pigs, chickens, cows, sheep, and so on. However, Ai Xiaohui doesn't want to transport these things. He wants to transport people, and it is more profitable to transport people. So these miniaturized cars are not considered. Although vans are also good, the ones sold here are all vans with more than 8 seats. Ai Xiaohui only has a C1 license, so he is not good at driving a van, so he can only drive ordinary cars. Logically speaking, it is very good to buy a car to transport people. There are also cars that cost more than 100,000 here, so it is quite good. However, considering that the roads in the nearby countryside were not all flat, Jianghu thought about it and felt that it was better to buy an SUV. Although SUVs were useless in the United States, other than going out to play, they were not very useful. But this is Wuxia, and it is also a good thing to have a big SUV. Chapter 580. As mentioned before, you have to drive a certain car to do whatever you want in America. You have to drive a car to pick someone up from the airport and go to work. You have to drive a car. Otherwise, people will feel that you are not sincere when you pick someone up. People will feel that you are not sociable when you go to work. You have to look at an MPV, which is a business car, when you pick up your child from school and go to school. If you don't drive this car, it will show that you are not considerate of your child's safety. You might even attract the police. Of course, this is also because Americans have more children. If you go out to play, you have to drive an SUV. If you don't drive, you will look unprofessional and be laughed at by others. That's why you have to drive a certain car to do whatever you want in America. Unless you are so poor that you only have one car. Then there is no need to go out to play. After all, the cars in America are quite cheap. But in China, it is different. People pay more attention to how much the car is worth when they drive. If you drive a Rolls-Royce to play, people will not laugh at you at all. Instead, they will be very envious. If you drive a G-grade AMG SUV starting from 2 million, to pick someone up from the airport, that person will definitely not feel that you are looking down on them. Instead, they will be very happy and talk to you about how much the car is worth. This is not to say that the East and the West are different. It is because Wuxia does not have a car culture at all. This is the difference between the East and the West. Wuxia people pay more attention to etiquette than the West, especially those families with more than 100 years of history. But Wuxia people are really not that particular about cars. The only people who pay attention to cars are probably not those rich people. But at least the people from the AI family will not pay attention to these things. Let's buy an SUV. This car is big, comfortable to drive, and fast. Most importantly, it is not a problem to drive on ordinary rural roads. After looking at the cars here, Jianghu set his eyes on the SUV. Want to buy an SUV? These cars are quite popular recently. Let me introduce them to you. Seeing that Jianghu wanted to buy an SUV, the salesperson's attitude wasn't particularly good, but it wasn't bad either. She brought Jianghu and the others to the place where the SUVs were placed in the distance and introduced them. This was because the country had been very fond of SUVs in recent years. Therefore, many domestic cars had the appearance of SUVs. Of course, what the interior looked like was up to different people. In this car dealership, 90% of the cars were made in China, including SUVs. The cheapest car was the Mustang F10, which cost 45,000 renminbi. In addition to the Mustang series, there were also Zhongtai, Zhishang, Senya, Beiki, Haver H1, Saab, Changhe, Maui, Zhongxing, Chang'an, Yingji, Ruifeng, Lifan, Shuiwan, Shintan, Orville, Great Wall, Jiangxi, Junpai, and so on. There were plenty of cars that cost less than 100,000 renminbi. AI Xiaohui couldn't help but feel a little dazzled. He had thought of buying a car before, but if he really bought one for him, he would be a little confused. After looking around, Jianghu found that he didn't know what to buy, so Jianghu decided to help him. Although Jianghu didn't care about money, he couldn't spend too much money to buy a car for AI Xiaohui. This was because he didn't buy a car for fun, but to attract customers. Jianghu also couldn't spend more than 1 million renminbi to buy a car for him to attract customers. Therefore, the cars he chose were between 100,000 renminbi and 200,000 renminbi. Although there were many SUVs in this price range, it wasn't too difficult to choose. Haver's H6, H7, Geely's Boyle, and Nissan's Xiaoka. Of course, he didn't buy this car. There are also Jeep's Liberty Knight, Ford Wing Tiger, and so on. Jianghu is more interested in the two models from Haver, as well as the Liberty Knight and Wing Tiger. But if you want to buy a car, you have to buy it early, so Jianghu only wants a car that is already available. The only car available was Haver's H6. It was a 6-speed automatic with a standard sunroof. It cost 126,800 renminbi. If it was a rural household registration, it would save 5%, which was 6,340 renminbi cheaper. However, the insurance, license, and taxes were all not cheap. But since Jianghu said that he wanted to buy a car for AI Xiaohui, he didn't care about this small amount of money. He directly swiped his card and bought the car. With money to pave the way, Jianghu still bought the car in full. The car dealership was still very fast. In a short time, the procedures for the car were already done, and the temporary license was also prepared. The purchase tax was also directly paid in the car dealership. They had an office in the tax bureau here. After everything was done, they could directly drive the car to the vehicle management office to get the license plate. So Jianghu and the other two drove 2 cars to the vehicle management office in the town. Of course, on the way, they deliberately filled up the car with gas. After arriving at the vehicle management office and paying the money, the other things were much easier. After choosing the license plate, it would be sent to AI Xiaoyi's home in 15 days. Of course, Jiang Xiaoyi could also drive here to get it himself. After everything was done, they looked at the time. It was almost 10 o'clock. Jiang Hai was still thinking about going back to gather seafood, so under his urging, the 3 directly rushed to the market. They were ready to go back after picking up Jiang Xiaoxi's father. But when they parked the car and went to the place where AI Xiaoxi's father set up his stall, they found that the place where the stall was originally set up was now full of people. Seeing this scene, Jiang Hai and the other 3 were stunned. What's going on? Looking at the situation in front of him, Jiang Hai couldn't help but whisper. He was tall and his ears were very sharp. He vaguely heard that there seemed to be some shouting in the crowd. Hey, Xiaoyi, your father has a conflict with Zhang Hao inside. Hurry up and see. Just when the 3 of them were a little puzzled, a woman on the periphery happened to see AI Xiaoyi and immediately said to him anxiously. As soon as they heard that their father had a conflict with others, AI Xiaoxi and AI Xiaoyi suddenly became anxious. They wanted to squeeze in, but one of them was a woman, and the other was weak and sick. It was really difficult to squeeze in. At this time, it was up to Jiang Hai. He protected AI Xiaoxi with one hand and let AI Xiaoyi follow behind him. He directly pushed through the crowd in front of him and walked in. When Jiang Hai and the others squeezed, they naturally pushed the people to the side. But when the people saw that it was AI Xiaoyi, they closed their mouths. They were just here to watch the fun. Since the person involved was here, they naturally didn't have the right to say anything. Soon, the 3 of them squeezed into the encirclement. However, as soon as they walked in, Jiang Hai couldn't help but frown. He only saw that the 2 baskets of leeks that were originally set up at the stall had sold a lot, but some were thrown everywhere. The 2 baskets were also broken, and the carrying pole was thrown far away. At this time, AI Xiaoxi's father was standing there with his clothes pulled by a burly man who was more than 1.8 meters tall. His face was a little dirty, and there were some shoe prints on his body. Behind the burly man, there were a few people who looked like hooligans, standing there and cursing. The burly man had a ferocious look on his face. He clenched his fist and shouted at AI Xiaoxi's father. Looking at AI Xiaoxi's father in front of him, the burly man roared fiercely, "You old fart, do you know how much my clothes are worth? You've ruined them. Don't think you can leave without 10,000 yuan today. I didn't ruin your clothes. You tore them yourself." However, although AI Xiaoxi's father was usually a little stuffy, he was very stubborn. The people of Lu province were all like this. They were very hot-blooded, and it was difficult to make them admit defeat here. "You old fart." Hearing that AI Xiaoxi's father still dared to be stubborn, the burly man cursed under his breath. He directly threw a punch at AI Xiaoxi's father's face, but unfortunately, he was stopped by a strong hand this time. Looking at the owner of the hand, the burly man couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. When he realized that the other party was a man more than 1.9 meters tall and had a strong appearance, he couldn't help but feel a little scared. While he was stunned, Jiang Hai had already rescued AI Xiaoxi's father from the burly man's hands and pulled him to the side. "Uncle, are you okay? Dad, are you okay? Dad! You bastards!" Seeing that Jiang Hai had rescued their father, AI Xiaoxi and her brother immediately ran over to check on their father's injuries. After discovering that he was fine, AI Xiaoyi couldn't help but be furious. He wanted to fight with his father, but he was stopped by Jiang Hai. "Oh, old fart, your family is here. That's a lot easier to talk about. Your father ruined my clothes, and now he wants to compensate me for it. I just bought this set of clothes for 12,000 yuan. I've worn it before, so I'll give you a discount. 10,000 yuan, give it to me. If you can't take it out, Old fart, I think your daughter is pretty good. Just play with us. Looking at Jianghu and the other two, the burly man moved his wrist that was grabbed by Jianghu just now and said with a playful face. Brother Hao, they are all locals. Hearing that his big brother seemed to want to make a big deal out of this matter, not only to extort money, but also to kidnap the girl, one of his underlings behind him walked to his side and whispered, Brother Hao, they are all locals, so what if they are locals? We are just playing with them. It's not like they will break anything. Look at her face, who knows what she will do. At most, we will just throw her 200 yuan after we are done. Hearing his underling's words, the man named Zhang Hao couldn't help but curl his lips and then laughed disdainfully. Hearing what he said, many of his underlings behind him also laughed. On the other side, Ai Xiaoxi's face was also gloomy, and her whole body was trembling with anger. Looking at her appearance, Jiang Hai patted her shoulder. Since Ai Xiaoxi's father was fine, then he didn't need to be polite. He walked straight to these people. You, how much is your clothes? Pointing to Zhang Hao's scratched clothes, Jiang Hai asked him. 10,000 yuan, boy, are you going to stand up? Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Zhang Hao's eyes narrowed and he said with disdain. Chapter 581. 10,000? 10,000 is fine. This shirt is mine. When Jiang Hai heard his words, he waved to Ai Xiaoxi and took out a stack of money from her bag. This was the money that Jiang Hai had just bought the car. He was afraid that he couldn't swipe his card to get a license plate at the Department of Motor Vehicles. He didn't know that he could swipe his card until he went there. Therefore, Jiang Hai now had 20,000 yuan, and this was 10,000 of it. Seeing Jiang Hai throw 10,000 yuan over, Brother Hao was obviously stunned. In fact, he came here to look for trouble. He couldn't believe that an old man selling leeks had 10,000 yuan in cash, but now he had to believe it. Okay, this is the end of it. You have guts. Although he deliberately came here to look for trouble, in the face of real money, Brother Hao was still ready to let them go today. He didn't believe that these people would not come to town. He took the money, looked at it, and felt that it was enough. He stuffed it into his trouser pocket and then was ready to leave. Wait a minute, did you forget something? Seeing that the man was about to turn and leave, Jiang Hai called out to stop him. What? You want to give me another 10,000? Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Brother Hao turned his head and asked with a look of displeasure. No, your clothes are mine. I'll have to trouble you to take it off. Jiang Hai shook his head and said to Zhang Hao. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Zhang Hao couldn't help but open his mouth. Jiang Hai was right, so he winked at his underling. This underling went to the stall selling clothes next to him and brought back a new shirt. Zhang Hao directly took off the shirt in front of everyone, threw it at Jiang Hai's feet, and put on the new shirt. This time I'm leaving. In his opinion, changing clothes in public was not a big deal. Looking at Jiang Hai's appearance, he chuckled and turned to leave, but this time Jiang Hai stopped him again. What? There's something else. Hearing Jiang Hai call out to him again, Zhang Hao couldn't help but frown and said with a cold expression. It's nothing. Your problem has been solved, but my uncle's problem hasn't been solved yet. My uncle has a total of 8 footprints on his body. I'll just treat it as 8 of your footprints. Each of your footprints is worth 1,000,000 yuan, so the total is 8 million yuan. The chives on the ground were carefully raised by my uncle. Each one costs 10,000 yuan. I'll give you a round number. Take 20 million, and we'll call it even. Jiang Hai said calmly as he pointed at Ai Xiaoxi's father and the chives on the ground. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, the onlookers couldn't help but gasp. 20 million. It was as if saying these 3 words from their mouths required a lot of courage. But looking at Jiang Hai's understatement, it didn't seem like he was joking. And these people's faces instantly darkened. Zhang Hao stretched his neck and walked over with a gloomy face. Boy, are you joking? Looking at Jiang Hai, Zhang Hao's pair of dead fish eyes rolled and looked at him. No, I'm serious. Also, don't get so close to me, you have bad breath. Hearing Zhang Hao's words, Jiang Hai said indifferently. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Zhang Hao's eyes narrowed, and he roared with a face full of anger, "Go, kill them for me, leave that woman for me, hit." Hearing Zhang Hao's order, several of his underlings behind him rushed up immediately. Looking at Jiang Hai standing still, they thought that Jiang Hai was scared silly. They went up and kicked Jiang Hai's chest. After this kick, Jiang Hai took a step back, and then a smile appeared on his face. This time it's self-defense. After staying in the United States for a long time, Jiang Hai played this trick of deceiving and counterattacking very well every time. Looking at the shoe print on his chest, Jiang Hai chuckled, and then without saying a word, he stepped aside and dodged the second person's kick, and a fist directly hit this person's face. The huge impact seemed to make this person's face sink, and he flew straight back like a sack. After hitting a stall, his head tilted and he fainted, but at this time, his face was already covered with blood, his nose was collapsed, and a few of his front teeth were knocked out. But at this time, the other punks didn't know this. Because they had already rushed over, Jiang Hai never meant to be merciful when dealing with these punks. Without saying a word, he went up and hit a person's temple, directly sending this person flying out horizontally. After landing, he was stunned. This blow would at least cause a severe concussion, and it was impossible for him to get up. With another sidestep, he dodged the other hoodlum's fist. Grabbing the hoodlum's arm, Jiang Hai bent it without hesitation. Ah! With a scream, the gangster's arm was instantly bent by Jiang Hai at a 90-degree angle. Seeing Jiang Hai cripple 3 of his underlings in an instant, the last underling who ran slower and hadn't attacked yet was stunned. His whole body was stunned, looking at Jiang Hai. Now he really didn't know whether to advance or retreat. On the other side, Ai Xiaodang and Ai Xiaoxi's father were also stunned, because they really didn't expect Jiang Hai to have such a strong fighting power, and to be so ruthless. In Ai Xiaoyi's eyes, Jiang Hai's originally abnormally tall figure seemed to be a lot taller. Now he was still a hot-blooded youth, and it would be strange if he didn't admire such a person with such explosive fighting power. Behind this punk, Zhang Hao's eyes were not only a trace of confusion and a trace of fear, but also a trace of ruthlessness. He really didn't expect Jiang Hai to be a martial artist. Behind his back, he quietly took out a switchblade from his waist. As he took out the switchblade, he went forward and pushed the punk. This punk subconsciously ran towards Jiang Hai. His face was full of fear, but Jiang Hai didn't care about him, and directly kicked this guy in the face. The huge impact directly kicked this guy to the ground, and he covered his face, losing the ability to fight. "Go to hell." But at this moment, Zhang Hao shouted, and stabbed Jiang Hai's stomach with the switchblade from behind. Looking at Zhang Hao's movement, Jiang Hai's eyes narrowed. This guy wanted to kill him. If this was the United States, Jiang Hai could directly kill him, but now he was in Wuxia, and Jiang Hai couldn't easily kill people. So looking at Zhang Hao's movement, Jiang Hai sighed. Sometimes in China, he felt that his hands and feet were tied, and it was really uncomfortable. However, although he couldn't take his life, Jiang Hai wasn't someone to be trifled with. Looking at the dagger stabbing towards him, Jiang Hai didn't say anything. He grabbed the hand holding the dagger with one hand and grabbed his elbow with the other. He directly bent his arm back with this force. He didn't give Zhang Hao any chance at all. The switchblade directly stabbed into his left shoulder. Ah. The dagger pierced his shoulder. Zhang Hao was also stunned. At most, he was just a small bully. Usually, he was quite good at fighting, but this time, he was scared to death. At the same time, he also felt a sharp pain. Looking at Zhang Hao lying on the ground with his arms around his shoulders, Jiang Hai clapped his hands. With this, they still dared to come out and rob? Young man, run quickly. This Zhang Hao's uncle is the deputy director of the town police station. When we saw the conflict just now, we had already called the police. I think the police will be here soon. If you don't leave now, you won't be able to leave. Seeing that Jiang Hai stood here without any intention to run, an old man next to him couldn't help but come over and said to Jiang Hai. Hearing the old man's words, Jiang Hai smiled and nodded, but he didn't mean to leave. Scared? This word had never appeared in his dictionary. Was the deputy director of a police station very powerful? At least Jiang Hai didn't think so. Who told him to have so much money? But this didn't mean that he would just wait. Picking up the phone, Jiang Hai called Moses Adams. Of course, he didn't ask him to come over to deal with this. It was too troublesome to ask him to come over, but he could recommend the top lawyer in Wuxia. After listening to the call from Jiang Hai, Moses Adams, who was about to fall asleep at this time, woke up in an instant. He immediately searched and then gave Jiang Hai a phone number. After recording the phone number, Jiang Hai called the owner of the phone. After giving the name, the person immediately became respectful. The person introduced by Moses Adams was a top lawyer in the capital of Wuxia. There was no problem with his ability. But in terms of reputation, it is indeed a lot worse than those big lawyer groups. And people like Jiang Hai, who has a net worth of 10 billion yuan, generally speaking, are unlikely to look for him. This is also an opportunity for him to look for him. He immediately agreed and immediately bought a plane ticket to come here. According to him, almost 3 hours was enough. Jiang Hai didn't say anything about this. He just stood there and waited for the arrival of the police. If these police came and followed the normal procedure, then Jiang Hai would only sue Zhang Hao and a few others. But if some melodramatic plot happened after the police came, then Jiang Hai might turn the world upside down. In fact, he had a lot of cards in the country. The Cheese Group and the National Security Agency, no matter which one, were at the highest level. If he was talking about face, then he wouldn't give anyone face. If everything was done according to legal procedures, then Jiang Hai would have nothing to say. If they were still playing dirty, then Jiang Hai wouldn't cover it up for them. He had the strength to overturn all of this. Just as Jiang Hai finished the phone call, less than 5 minutes later, several police cars appeared outside the crowd. Then several policemen came over from the crowd. Looking at the scene in front of them, these policemen's eyes couldn't help but freeze. Who is the informant? Looking at the situation at this time, a middle-aged policeman shouted loudly to the surroundings. Uncle Zheng, this kid stabbed me with a knife. You have to uphold justice for me. Probably hearing the voice of the middle-aged policeman, Zhang Hao, who was lying on the ground and was about to faint, couldn't help but shout to the middle-aged policeman. Chapter 582. Hearing Zhang Hao's words, everyone's heart skipped a beat. Ai Xiaoxi's family of 3 thought that they were in trouble. Ai Xiaoxi knew that Jiang Hai had some power in the country. Thinking about the Qi clan, Jiang Hai understood. With the Qi clan as his backer, not to mention Zhang Hao, even if Jiang Hai wanted to deal with the town's mayor, it wouldn't be a problem. The only problem was that the county magistrate wasn't as good as the current mayor. The Qi family's name was indeed useful, but what if the other party directly arrested them and forced them to confess and directly convicted them? Then the Qi family would be useless. It had to be admitted that sometimes people watched too much news and movies. They would have a slight paranoia. Whenever something happened, they would always plan for the worst. However, one must always be vigilant. Who knew if such a thing would happen, especially in a place far away from the emperor? When Ai Xiaoxi saw the police come in, he also thought about this. Then, he took out his mobile phone and began to record. He did not know that the glasses on Jiang Hai's face were not only used as a driving recorder. His glasses were also recording the whole process. Otherwise, he would not have been so heavy-handed. Like the Ai family of 3, Jiang Hai's heart also skipped a beat. However, he was not afraid like them. He was a little excited. In the past, he often read novels like this. The gangsters colluded with the police, the officials, and the gangsters. Then, the protagonist beat up the gangsters. The police came and arrested the protagonist without saying a word. Then, they took him to the police station and tortured him. At the critical moment, the protagonist's connections played a role. The lawyer or something came and slapped the gangsters in the face. Although it was melodramatic, more than 90% of urban novels had such a scene. There were so many articles in the world. Jianghu was not sure if he would be so inspired in the future. However, if they dared to do so, it would be strange if Jianghu did not turn this place upside down. One had to know that his roots were not in the country, but in the country, he knew the top existences. He had money, power, and influence. Although a powerful dragon could not suppress a local snake, he did not consider the problem of whether or not to occupy this place. What connections? What friendships? They were useless in his eyes. If anyone dared to touch him, he would uproot them. Yes, uprooting. Not only did they want to arrest Jianghu's uncle Umbrella, the director of the police station, and the mayor of the town were also arrested. If the supervision was not good enough, they would all be fired. Why did Jianghu make money? A better and more comfortable environment was inevitable, but other than that, it was even more important to smash these people that he had disliked in the past. However, what surprised Jianghu was that the man Jianghu called Uncle Jing didn't immediately walk over with a straight face and handcuff him without saying a word. Instead, he stood in place and looked around before walking towards Jianghu and the others. The policeman behind him also checked the injuries of the thugs and immediately called for an ambulance. As for the policeman's surname Zheng, he squatted in front of Jianghu and looked at him so seriously. "Tell me, did you drink again? Why are you disobedient? Why are you drinking in the daytime?" Pointing at Jianghu, the policeman surnamed Zheng couldn't help but say sternly. Hearing the words of the policeman surnamed Zheng, not only Jianghu, but everyone was stunned. Even Jianghu was stunned. He didn't understand. What was going on? What did this have to do with whether the kid drank or not? At this time, shouldn't the police directly rush over, take him away, and then carry on with the drama? What's wrong with the situation? Just as Jianghu was puzzled, Jianghu reacted, I drank a little at noon, but Uncle Zheng, I didn't drink too much." "Hey! Why is there a dagger on my arm?" Looking at the policeman surnamed Zheng, Jianghu was a little puzzled, but he continued to follow his words. Because he knew that the policeman surnamed Zheng was his uncle's confidant, it was impossible for him not to help him. Even if he didn't help him on the surface, he would definitely help him behind his back. But now that he said this, the situation was not good. "Kid, behave yourself. You take him to the hospital." Seeing Jianghu react, the police officer surnamed Zheng snorted coldly and then said to the police officers behind him. Then these police officers gathered them together and waited for the 120 to come. As for the policeman surnamed Zheng, he walked in front of Jianghu with a smile on his face. This time, it should be that bastard who caused this. "I'm really sorry. If you have any losses, I will inform the kid's family and make up for your losses. We are all from the same village. There is no need to be too stiff, right? Moreover, they are also injured like that." Looking at Jianghu, the policeman surnamed Zheng said with a smile. "What's the situation with you guys?" Looking at this policeman, Jianghu was more and more confused. Is this still our people's police? When did he become so easy to talk to? Jianghu has never seen such an easygoing policeman in his life. What else can it be? We also know that this bastard usually does not do good things on the surface, so we also came to deal with it. There is no need to make this matter too big. If you want to settle it privately, then let's forget about it. If you want to go through a civil lawsuit, then come back with us to make a statement. Who is responsible will be compared at that time." Hearing Jianghu's puzzled remarks, the policeman surnamed Jing also chuckled, and then said to Jianghu. Looking at his appearance, Jianghu was a little confused. Then he looked back at Ai Xiaoxi and found that they were also a little confused. Could it be that there's a high-ranking official here? You guys have changed your approach. Looking at these people in front of him, Jianghu said with some doubts, but if this matter is settled like this, Jianghu has no way to pursue it. After all, Ai Xiaoxi's father had only been kicked a few times, but these guys would have to lie in bed for at least 2 or 3 months to recover. Moreover, Jianghu had to consider for the Ai family. If he really offended these local tyrants, it would be fine if he was here, but if he wasn't, it would be a little troublesome. Oh. What do you think of my proposal? Hearing Jianghu's words, the policeman surnamed Zheng did not say anything, but asked Jianghu. At the same time, his eyes were also looking at Ai Xiaoxi's father. This, okay, but you have to ask him to return the 10,000 yuan he took from us. Hearing the policeman's words, Ai Xiaoxi's father was still afraid of trouble. Since ancient times, people did not fight with officials. This sentence was also true in modern times. The magistrate who destroyed the family, the county magistrate who destroyed the family. Although the other party is not the county magistrate here, his authority is not small. Now is a new society, and they don't dare to be so brazen. After all, this place is not far from Wei City, and it is not a place that is completely ungoverned. But if the other party wants to mess with you, they will have to suffer for a long time. So after hesitating for a while, Ai Xiaoxi's father decided to let it go. He won't die from a few kicks. This is what we should do. Although he did not know what happened, the policeman surnamed Zheng immediately reacted. He went to Jianghu and took out the 10,000 yuan that Jianghu gave him from his pocket, then returned it to Jianghu and the others. After getting the money, Ai Xiaoxi's father left with Jianghu and the others. This made Jianghu a little unhappy. After saving the video, he called the lawyer he had just contacted and told him not to come over for the time being. Jianghu was also afraid that these guys might have something up their sleeves. If they waited for them to leave, then these people would make things difficult for them. After all, he had read a lot of dark novels before. Killing and arson were not something that these people would not dare to do. Seeing Jianghu and the others leave, the policeman surnamed Zheng could not help but let out a long sigh. He gently wiped the sweat on his forehead. At this moment, the ambulance arrived. The policeman surnamed Zheng sat next to Jianghu and got into the ambulance together. Uncle Zheng, did some big shot come to town? You are so careful today. After getting into the ambulance, Jianghu stopped pretending to be drunk. He held his shoulder and raised his head, gritted his teeth, and asked the middle-aged policeman with a puzzled expression. There haven't been any big shots in town recently, but the one you offended is a big shot. Hearing Jianghu's words, the policeman surnamed Zheng glanced at him and then said lightly. Hearing what he said, Jianghu was a little puzzled. In fact, just as Jianghu thought just now, this guy was deliberately looking for trouble, so he still had some understanding of the Ai family. The only promising daughter of the Ai family was working in a modeling company in the capital. Such a person could be considered a big shot. Don't bully him because he was not educated. He did not think that Jianghu was a powerful person. Go back and ask your uncle. If your uncle doesn't beat you, I will let you come back and beat me. The person you just offended is called Jianghu. He is a super rich man. His wife's family runs a first-tier company in the capital, and he is also in contact with the people at the top. I am sure that if I said a wrong word just now, not only me, you, your whole family, will have to pay for you in prison. Looking at Jianghu in front of him, the policeman surnamed Zheng couldn't help but snort coldly and said with a threatening face. Hiss. Hearing his words, Jianghu was also stunned. He really couldn't see that Jianghu had so much power. I hope he will give up. Seeing that Jianghu knew how powerful he was, the policeman surnamed Zheng couldn't help but sigh and whisper. The reason why he knew about Jianghu was mainly because of a document. 2 months ago, when Jianghu was in China, he told the people at the top that he wanted to get some livestock back to the United States, and the donkeys in Lu province were also one of his goals. So in order to avoid trouble, the people in Lu province had quietly sent a message about Jianghu, telling the people below not to provoke this guy. The policeman surnamed Zheng obviously had a good memory. He still remembered it after 2 months. Chapter 583. The people here naturally didn't know what Jiang Hai was doing in the United States, but they knew about the relationship between Jiang Hai and the Qi group and the relationship with the higher-ups. This could be found out with a simple investigation. It was something on the surface, but it was something that these people couldn't afford to provoke. So after hearing the words of the police officer surnamed Zheng, Jiang Hao was honest. He knew that he was stabbed in vain. It was actually quite good to be stabbed. If he really did something wrong, his entire family would be in trouble. His whole family had been arrested. Not to mention whether he would die in prison. Even if he was released, he would have to live with his tail between his legs. All these years, he had offended a lot of people. Whether he would continue to live, who knew? For a while, the whole ambulance was quiet. After sending these people to the hospital in the town, those who needed to be registered and those who needed to be hospitalized could only be considered unlucky. After the police officer surnamed Zheng helped with these, he left first. He had to talk to his boss about this matter. Not long after he left, a guy with a sharp mouth and monkey-like cheeks came in from the outside with a basket of fruits. "Brother Hao, are you okay?" Looking at Jiang Hao, who was wrapped in 3 layers of clothes after taking out the dagger, the monkey-like man asked in a low voice while walking inside. But when he heard his voice, Jiang Hao opened his eyes in an instant. Without looking, he directly picked up the remaining water that the police officer surnamed Zheng had just drunk and threw it at the door. This person clearly didn't expect Jiang Hao to throw the water directly at him. He didn't dodge for a while and was hit on the head by the water bottle, which instantly caused a big bruise. "Ouch, ouch, ouch, Brother Hao, what are you doing?" Covering his head, this person couldn't help but scream. He really didn't understand what this guy was doing. He was fine just now. Why did he suddenly go crazy? Why? I want to ask you why. What did you tell me? The AI family is an ordinary carpenter family? F***CKU. Do you know who is the man that the girl you like has found? How dare you come over here? Looking at this guy, Jiang Hao roared loudly. Hearing his words, that guy's face was full of doubts and puzzlement. In fact, today's matter was a trap. The sharp-mouthed monkey-cheeked man was none other than Lu Lao-san, the son of the village chief. His name was Lu Zheng, but he really didn't know which part of him was righteous. His face was slanted and his heart was evil. There was nothing righteous about him. Although Lu Zheng's father made money by enclosing land in the village, he was still able to do things well because he was from the village. After all, this place wasn't too far from Wei City. If they really caused a ruckus, no one would be able to save them. Therefore, he wouldn't do anything to Ai Xiaoxi just because her father didn't want to marry her to his son. If this matter didn't work out, it wouldn't work out. But Lu Zheng couldn't. He wasn't someone who was easy to deal with. After seeing Ai Xiaoxi, he was really shocked. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone to Ai Xiaoxi's uncle and aunt to talk about this. But the day before yesterday, when he found out that Ai Xiaoxi had brought her boyfriend back, he was furious. He wanted to find trouble with Jiang Hai, but he heard that Ai Xiaoxi's boyfriend was more than 190 centimeters tall and strong. In addition, the Ai family had some reputation in the village. It was impossible for him to find someone from the village to find trouble with Jiang Hai. Just as he was worrying, he saw Ai Xiaoxi and her family of 4 driving to town today. So, he took note of it. He specifically looked for Jiang Hao, who was also not a good person, and promised him 5,000 yuan to help him give Jiang Hai and the others a lesson. He didn't need to make a big deal out of it. He just needed to beat up old man Ai first. After attracting Jiang Hai's attention, he would beat up Jiang Hai. Then, he would come out to save the beauty at this time. First, he wanted to let Jiang Hai know the difficulty and back off. Second, he would gain prestige, and it was very likely that he would win the beauty's heart. But who knew that Jiang Hai's background was much more powerful than he imagined? And he was so good at fighting. Just now, he had been hiding behind the crowd and watching all of this happen. It was really too dramatic. So now, he had to buy some fruits to visit Jianghu. He originally thought that Jianghu was scared in the end because there was a high-ranking official in town. But now, it seemed that this Jianghu was someone he could mess with. Hearing Jianghu's roar, Lu Jing couldn't do anything except stand there and smile. "Let me tell you, today's matter is all your fault. Quickly send the 5,000 yuan to me, and also the medical expenses of my brothers. I tell you, if there's a penny missing, I'll make you suffer." Seeing that Lu Jing had been scared by him and the big bump on his head, Jianghu took a deep breath and then put forward his request. "It's my duty, it's my duty." Although this matter didn't succeed, it was necessary to pay some blood. Lu Jing immediately nodded. At the same time, the fire in his heart for Ai Xiaoxi was extinguished a lot. People like him were not as infatuated and single-minded as Yu Hongji. He just wanted to do something when he saw the beauty. Now that he knew that this beauty was not someone he could afford to offend, he would learn to let go. He had no choice but to let go. In his eyes, he was the most important. It was not worth it to lose his family's happiness for a girl. Regardless of how Jianghu and Lu Jing talked about this, on the other side, Jiang Hai and the other three were on their way home. Jiang Hai was also a little puzzled. The plot was not right. This was supposed to be the rhythm of 3 or 5 chapters. Why did it suddenly end? This made him a little depressed. It was like doing something with a beauty. The front part was almost done, but the beauty told you that her relatives came. She had hemorrhoids and mouth ulcers. She just did it. It was fake. It was as if he couldn't pick it up. It was really unpleasant. He couldn't even pretend to be a fool anymore. How could there be true love in this world? While Jiang Hai was depressed, Ai Xiaoxi's father didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He remembered that when he came, he specifically told Jiang Hai that he didn't need to buy a car for Ai Xiaoyi. In the end, he didn't look after Ai Xiaoyi for a few hours, and Ai Xiaoyi bought a new car. And it didn't look cheap. Ai Xiaoxi's father, who had never owed anyone anything in his life, couldn't help but sigh. His family owed Jiang Hai too much. Although there was a layer of relationship between Jiang Hai and Ai Xiaoxi. But he didn't want his daughter to be a person with no right to speak beside Jiang Hai. In the northern region, male chauvinism was rampant. Although Ai Xiaoxi's father was afraid of his wife, he still had the final say in the family's matters. For example, when Ai Xiaoxi wanted to go to college, the family's income, expenses, and so on, he had the final say. In his opinion, Jiang Hai was from Bing City and was probably a male chauvinist. Under such circumstances, if his daughter wanted to have a say in the family, she would either have to rely on her family or herself. Since he couldn't count on her family, he could only count on Ai Xiaoxi herself. If Jiang Hai knew what Ai Xiaoxi's father was thinking, he would probably die of embarrassment. In fact, he wasn't a good man at all. The two cars returned to the small village one after the other and stopped in front of Ai Xiaoxi's house. It attracted a lot of attention from the neighbors. When they saw Ai Xiaoyi get out of the car, the discussion became louder. Because of the delay in town, Jiang Hai couldn't catch up with Ai Xiaoxi today. So Jiang Hai and the others stayed at home for the whole afternoon. The next day, Ai Xiaoyi, who had just bought a new car, couldn't resist the urge to touch the car. So Jiang Hai, Ai Xiaoxi, and Ai Xiaoyi drove to Wei City. After returning Jiang Hai's rental car, the three of them rode in Ai Xiaoyi's new car and went around Wei City for a while before returning home at night. But when they returned home, the small village was in an uproar. Almost everyone in the village knew that the Ai family was rich this time. Ai Xiaoxi had found a rich man outside. This man was young, good-looking, big, and had a good temper. Most importantly, the incident at the market yesterday had spread. He could fight, protect others, and most importantly, it seemed that the police in town were quite afraid of him. With all these things gathered together, it seemed that Jiang Hai was the perfect rich husband. They had no way of finding a good son-in-law like Jiang Hai, but Ai Xiaoyi, a young man who was originally not conspicuous in the small village, had entered the eyes of many people. In the past, Ai Xiaohui had undergone major surgery and might not live long. He didn't have any skills to make a living. If any family's daughter married him, it would be looking for trouble. Naturally, he wouldn't be welcomed by others. But now, it was different. Ai Xiaoxi found Jianghu, which meant that the rich man Jianghu was Ai Xiaohui's brother-in-law. If Ai Xiaohui had any problems in the future, this brother-in-law would definitely help him. Most importantly, with a car, Ai Xiaohui could pull some strings here. This was a business that was guaranteed to be profitable. They were quite interested in this. For a while, many anxious people had already stepped over the threshold to discuss it. However, there were still some people who were waiting to see if Ai Xiaohui had the good fortune to do so. Such a change, in the eyes of the Ai family, was something to be happy about. Because of Jianghu's arrival, the family had become lively again. Perhaps, these past few days were the happiest days that the Ai family had in the past 2 years. But time always passed by. In the blink of an eye, there was only 1 day left in September. Jianghu and the others would leave tomorrow. Chapter 584. There was an old saying that went, "No one cares about the poor in the city, but the rich have distant relatives in the deep mountains." But sometimes, the old saying wasn't accurate. Another old saying went, "Good news never leaves the house, but bad news travels 1,000 miles." Now that the Ai family had found Jianghu, this should be considered a good thing. But this good news didn't stay hidden. Therefore, it didn't take long for the news to spread. The news that Ai Xiaoxi had found a young, rich, good-looking, good-natured, and strong boyfriend spread in the nearby small village within a day. But Jianghu didn't care about this, because his relationship with Ai Xiaoxi was indeed like that. Although it seemed a little complicated, Jianghu wouldn't deny this news. These days, some middle-aged women in the village often happened to pass by Ai Xiaoxi's house. If they saw the Ai family, they would greet them warmly and, conveniently, ask about Jianghu's situation. Just like this, the news of Jianghu's group spread in the small village without them noticing. On the 30th of September, Jianghu's group originally booked a flight for the 1st of October, which was the day before they left. Ai Xiaoxi's mother's relatives brought gifts to Ai Xiaoxi's house. But looking at the things they brought, Jianghu chuckled. Eggs, chickens, and even steamed buns, what the hell is this? After putting these things in Ai Xiaoxi's house, they directly picked up the cigarettes that Jianghu bought for Ai Xiaoxi's father and started to smoke. They also knew that the price of these cigarettes wasn't cheap. A box of these cigarettes was equivalent to the things they brought over. So naturally, they were happy to smoke. In the countryside, there were many women who smoked. For a while, it was as if the house was set on fire, causing smoke to swirl around. Jianghu didn't smoke, and Ai Xiaoxi naturally didn't smoke either. Ai Xiaohui had learned to smoke before, but now that his body was in such a state, wouldn't it be too slow for him to smoke? Therefore, the three of them went out and played at the beach for the whole afternoon. They only came back when it was time for lunch. Although these people had gone overboard when the Ai family suffered a disaster a while ago, they were still relatives after all. Since they wanted to mend their relationship, Ai Xiaoxi's mother was quite happy. He made a table full of good wine and dishes to entertain these people. When these people were at the table, their main target was Jianghu. Little Jiang, you're welcome. Come to your uncle and auntie's place as if you're at home. Come, eat. Once they were seated at the table, Ai Xiaoxi's eldest aunt spoke to Jianghu enthusiastically. Hearing her words, Jianghu felt a little embarrassed. Logically speaking, they were real relatives. If they were close, there was nothing wrong with what they said. But the problem was that they weren't close to each other in the first place. Why did they come here to pretend to be seniors? Hearing her words, Ai Xiaoxi felt a little awkward. Come. Eat. Seeing that the atmosphere at the table was a little awkward, Ai Xiaoxi's mother started to make arrangements. When Jianghu heard Ai Xiaoxi's mother's words, he smiled and began to eat. But before he could eat 2 mouthfuls, Ai Xiaoxi's eldest uncle appeared again. He held a glass of wine and gestured for Jianghu to drink. Drinking with elders was like this. Jianghu didn't stand on ceremony. He picked up the wine in front of him and drank a glass. After drinking this glass of wine, Ai Xiaoxi's eldest uncle's chatterbox was opened. His behavior as an elder was really full of style. Little Jiang, you said that we came here mainly to see your new son-in-law. You said that you haven't come back for the whole afternoon. We don't know much about you. I heard that you have some assets. Where did you get them from? Looking at Jianghu, Ai Xiaoxi's eldest uncle said with a serious face. Hearing his words, the others at the table were still eating. But their ears pricked up. To be honest, the reason they came here was because of Jianghu. This news was very important. Oh, I raise cattle in America. However, Jianghu wasn't stupid. He naturally knew why these people asked him this question, so he played it down. This wasn't the time to be pretentious, although Jianghu liked to pretend to be pretentious. But this also needed to pay attention to the timing. Sometimes, not saying anything was the best time to pretend. Raising cattle in America? Why not raise them in Wuxia? Why do you have to go so far away to raise cattle? Hearing Jianghu's words, Ai Xiaoxi's eldest aunt said with a strange face. In their view, cattle were cattle. Cattle were only divided into ordinary cattle and dairy cows. She didn't understand what kind of cattle and what kind of cattle were. A pound of beef sold for thousands of yuan, in their view, only existed in nonsense stories. No matter whether others believed it or not, they wouldn't believe it. Originally, they thought that Jianghu was doing business or something like that. They really didn't think that Jianghu was raising cattle in America. Oh, the land in America is cheap. Hearing Ai Xiaoxi's eldest aunt's words, Jianghu said very calmly. Hearing Jianghu's words, Ai Xiaoxi's eldest uncle and eldest aunt looked at each other and didn't say anything. Then don't you have any ideas? He also raises cattle in China. You see, your eldest aunt's husband usually has nothing to do. If you raise cattle in China, your family can help you look after them. After finding out what Jianghu was doing, Ai Xiaoxi's eldest aunt couldn't help but laugh and say. Hearing her words, Jianghu couldn't help but curse in his heart. Shameless. Why should Jianghu spend money to raise cattle in China and ask your family to look after them? Is he crazy? Why did he give up his ranch in America and come back to open a ranch here? If he really did this, his brain would be pierced. I don't have this idea for the time being. The land in China can't be inherited, so I don't have any feelings for this land. Hearing Ai Xiaoxi's eldest aunt's words, Jianghu directly refused without leaving any room for negotiation. Hearing Jianghu's words, not only Ai Xiaoxi's eldest uncle and eldest aunt's face fell, but her eldest aunt's and eldest aunt's husband's faces also fell. Staying in America is not a long-term solution. After all, it's the foreigner's territory. It's not as comfortable as here. But everyone has their own ambitions. Little Jiang, I heard that the cattle raised abroad are different from the cattle raised here, right? Seeing that the atmosphere at the dinner table was a little cold, Ai Xiaoxi's eldest uncle asked Jianghu with a smile. Well, it's indeed different. Hearing Ai Xiaoxi's eldest uncle's words, Jianghu couldn't help but look at her eldest uncle in a new light. He actually knew that this thing was different. This really surprised Jianghu. He thought that in their eyes, there was only the difference between cows and cows. People who didn't raise cattle really didn't know this. For example, in China, cattle and water buffaloes were the main breeds. Water buffaloes were big in size, but their meat wasn't delicious. Although the meat of cattle wasn't as delicious as the beef from abroad, the meat quality was at least better than that of water buffaloes. But most people still couldn't tell the difference between water buffaloes and cattle. This was a very rigid thing, and people in China didn't pay attention to this. I heard that beef from abroad is very expensive. I have some spare money here. I see that there are many people raising cattle here. Can you get me some of your cattle? I'll buy them. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Ai Xiaoxi's eldest uncle couldn't help but smile and say. After all, he was the youngest among these people. He also knew that it was unrealistic to get money from Jiang Hai with bare hands. It was just like when the Ai family was in trouble, they didn't lend money. The money was theirs. If they wanted to borrow it, they could borrow it. If they didn't want to borrow it, they couldn't lend it. However, it was precisely because of this that their relationship with the Ai family was a bit cold. After all, Jiang Hai was the son-in-law of the Ai family. If Jiang Hai's money was from the Ai family, then they might have a chance to get some money from him. But Jiang Hai's money was Jiang Hai's. It was normal for Jiang Hai to spend money on the Ai family, but it was abnormal for him to spend it on them. So he thought of another way. Their neighbor's son was a college student. After graduating from college, he couldn't find a job, so he came over to raise cattle. Although he wasn't very successful, his vision was still there. Before coming, he specifically asked his neighbor. His neighbor had attended these classes before, so his neighbor knew that foreign cattle were much better than domestic cattle. Not only was the quality better, but the amount of meat produced was also more. If a cow was imported, it would be much more expensive than domestic cattle. A domestic beef cow could earn a few thousand yuan, but a foreign cow could earn tens of thousands of yuan. It was even more valuable than a domestic cow. It was precisely because of this that he was moved. After seeing his elder brother and elder sister being stifled, he expressed his thoughts. This may not work. But unfortunately, his proposal was the most difficult one for Jiang Hai. Why? In his opinion, Jiang Hai really didn't give him face by rejecting him like this. He didn't want it for free. He gave the money, but Jiang Hai didn't even do anything and directly rejected him. What did this mean? Foreign cattle are much better than domestic cattle. I think Uncle also knows this. But why is it that foreign cattle are better than domestic cattle, but China still doesn't import them? It's because foreign countries don't easily allow live cattle to go abroad, and China also doesn't allow foreign live cattle to enter Huaxia's market. Seeing her uncle's appearance, Jiang Hai thought for a moment and tried to explain it to him in layman terms. You haven't even tried. How do you know it won't work? But her uncle didn't listen to Jiang Hai's explanation. He still looked at Jiang Hai with an unhappy face. In his opinion, there was nothing in this world that couldn't be done with money. He was willing to spend money, but Jiang Hai still didn't do it. Then he looked down on him and didn't give him face. Jiang Hai just laughed at this. Seeing that reasoning couldn't be done, Jiang Hai didn't say anything. You can do whatever you want. Anyway, Jiang Hai can't get it in. Chapter 585. Hiss, next time, I don't want to come to your house. If your dad and mom want to see me, they can go to my manor to play. It's first class to and fro. Rubbing his temples, Jiang Hai sat in the first-class cabin with a headache and said to Ai Xiaoxi next to him. When Ai Xiaoxi heard Jiang Hai's words, she couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. Then, she patted Jiang Hai on the shoulder. Go to your manor? How are you going to hide your little lovers? Listening to Jiang Hai's words, Ai Xiaoxi also leaned on Jiang Hai's arm and said with a smile. Last night's dinner, well, Jiang Hai was really unhappy. But he wasn't the only one who was unhappy. Almost everyone at the table was unhappy. Ai Xiaoxi and her family didn't expect their relatives to be so shameless. After the meal, Lin Mengya and her family were stunned. After eating, the three families also left. After they left, Jiang Hai breathed a sigh of relief. Then, they stayed for another night. Early the next morning, Ai Xiaoxi drove them to the airport in Wei City. The tickets were booked yesterday. Although the flight time was very short, Jianghu still got 2 first-class tickets. Of course, the first-class cabin of this kind of small plane couldn't be compared with the first-class cabin of those big planes. The sofa was bigger, the environment was better, and they didn't have to squeeze with others, but the price was more than twice as expensive. But domestic flights, no matter how expensive it was, Jianghu didn't care about more than 2,000 yuan per person. So, 2 first-class tickets were necessary. If they had money, what was the use of that money if not enjoying it? To give birth to children? Where did the little lovers come from? You think too much. Hearing Ai Xiaoxi's words, Jianghu smiled awkwardly and said with a righteous face. But when he said it, he felt that his words were a little flustered. Don't let me ask you. That Aphrodite, Dana, Hilda, and the others, don't say that you have a pure relationship with them. They are all trying to get into your bed. They say that you are so honest. Regardless of whether others believe it or not, I don't believe it. Ai Xiaoxi pinched Jianghu's arm and couldn't help but say with some jealousy. Looking at her, Jianghu could only smile more awkwardly and have nothing else to say. In fact, unknowingly, the relationship between Jianghu and Ai Xiaoxi was also changing. If it was before Jianghu came back this time, Ai Xiaoxi wouldn't be jealous of Jianghu. How many women Jianghu had outside had nothing to do with her. Because she wasn't Jianghu's girlfriend, she wouldn't care how many women Jianghu had outside. The status of those women was actually not much different from her, so she wouldn't have such thoughts. But this time, after Jianghu met her parents as her boyfriend, she couldn't help but have a ripple in her heart. To be honest, she now had the intention to take a step forward in her relationship with Jianghu. It seemed that she had to consider what Feng Yunshan had told her back then. But if she became Jianghu's girlfriend, she might have to accept that she wasn't the only one by Jianghu's side. This was what she was most conflicted about, and it was also what she needed to consider carefully. No one didn't want to be the only one by their man's side. But Ai Xiaoxi couldn't do that, because at least she couldn't chase Feng Yunshan away. Ai Xiaoxi didn't want to think about this for now. After watching a movie on the plane with Jianghu, the plane slowly landed at Bing City's Taiping International Airport. Wei City was not far from Bing City, and the plane arrived in no time. When Jianghu carried Ai Xiaoxi's luggage out of the airport, he saw a group of people waiting for him from afar. Jianghu didn't inform too many people about his return this time. He didn't even tell Qili the exact time. But his buddies already knew that he was coming back. Before his plane landed, they had been waiting at the parking lot for a long time. When they saw Jianghu coming out, they couldn't help waving their hands. Seeing these buddies, Jianghu also smiled and walked over quickly. He gave them a punch first. This was their way of greeting each other. Of course, Jianghu had to hold back when he punched them. Otherwise, his buddies wouldn't be able to withstand his punch. You left for more than half a year and didn't even come back once. Are you really going to settle down in the US and not come back? Looking at Jianghu, Huang Yunfei, who was about to be promoted to the groom, said with a smile. You haven't seen this guy's manner before. If it were you, you wouldn't want to come back. It's so beautiful. You can eat, live, sleep, and have fun there. To be honest, if it weren't for my parents and my job here, would have moved here to eat and live there. Hearing Huang Yunfei's words, Fu Yuan, who was the only one who had been there, said enviously. It's fine. At least you have been there. We haven't been there. Hearing Fu Yuan's yearning words, Su Wei sighed and said to him. Hearing what he said, Jianghu also laughed. It's not easy to come here. You have to solve the problem of the plane ticket. After you arrive, you can eat, drink, play, and have fun. Looking at the few brothers in front of him who were a little emotional, Jianghu also laughed. These small amounts of money for fun were not worth mentioning to him, but as mentioned before, he and these brothers were equal. The most annoying thing among the brothers was to be divided into superiors and subordinates. They didn't care who had more money and who had less money. The relationship between them was different from that between colleagues and friends. There was no way to count money in this relationship. Jianghu could give them all their money, but the other party would not accept it. They were going there to have fun, not to ask for help. Okay, this time I'm married. I've asked for half a month's leave. I can go and have fun then. Hearing Jianghu's words, Huang Yunfei couldn't help but have some thoughts. He was not short of money. As a nurse, there was no such thing as a lack of money. Originally, he wanted to go to Europe for a honeymoon. He didn't care about spending 1 or 200,000 yuan. But going to Europe and the United States, 13 renminbi was about the same. Moreover, he could save some money. He could also go and have fun with Jianghu. This was a very happy thing. Let's see what he will say to his wife when he goes back. I don't seem to have anything to do recently. Count me in. Hearing that they were going to Jianghu's manor to have fun, Fu Yuan was also excited. Since the last time he went to Jianghu's manor, he had always wanted to go. This was an opportunity. I don't have anything to do recently, but I only have the money for the plane ticket. Hearing their words, Su Wei hesitated and said. Su Wei didn't have much work to do recently. It was almost winter, and Bing City was getting cold quickly. Therefore, a lot of work stopped in winter. In addition, after Fu Yuan came back last time, he bragged to Jianghu. The plane ticket was not expensive. Of course, the first-class ticket was expensive. But these old men didn't need to take the first class. They could just sit in the economy class for more than 10 hours. The economy class ticket from Beijing to the United States only cost more than 3,000 yuan. When it was cheaper, it could even be more than 2,000 yuan. When it was more than 1,000 yuan, they couldn't help but be tempted. Okay, come and have fun. Our manor is now open for tourism. There are many places to have fun. The last time Fu Yuan went there, he only played with my gun. This time, our shooting range has been expanded. You can go and have fun there. It's all mine. Hearing that these brothers wanted to go, Jianghu also laughed. They were going to his manor, and Jianghu was naturally very welcoming. Not for anything else, but for them to come to his manor to have fun. This could relieve Jianghu of a lot of boredom. As soon as they mentioned the gun, the sea, and the manor, Jianghu's brothers became excited and kept talking. Soon, Huang Yunfei, Su Wei, and Fu Yuan decided to go to Jianghu's manor to have fun. Xiang Hua, who came with them, couldn't. Although Xiang Hua had a close relationship with Jianghu, he didn't have much money. This didn't mean that he didn't even have 10,000 yuan, but it was because his wife had the final say in his family. The house he lived in now was bought by his wife, and his job was found by his father-in-law. In addition, his wife was pregnant, so he couldn't go to Jianghu's manor to have fun. He had no other choice but to sigh. At this time, Ai Xiaoxi also walked to Jianghu's side and stood next to Jianghu. The first person to notice Ai Xiaoxi was Huang Yunfei, the groom-to-be, but unfortunately, this groom-to-be wasn't a good person. Seeing a beautiful woman standing beside Jianghu, Jianghu couldn't help but cough subconsciously. Then, he deliberately turned his face to the side. His eyes that were originally teasing 13 also became deep as he looked at Ai Xiaoxi and smiled. Miss, is there anything I can help you with? When he saw Ai Xiaoxi looking at him, he couldn't help but ask softly. Oh, no need. Hearing Huang Yunfei's words, Ai Xiaoxi just smiled, and then naturally held Jianghu's arm. Seeing this scene, Huang Yunfei almost fell, and the other people who came with him were also a little confused. By the way, let me introduce you. This is Ai Xiaoxi, my, friend. She came back with me this time. This is Huang Yunfei, this is Fu Yuan, this is Su Wei, this is Xiang Hua, these are all my good brothers. Looking at their appearance, Jianghu smiled and introduced Ai Xiaoxi to everyone, and Ai Xiaoxi also nodded to them one by one. I was wondering, when did you have a girl's heart, getting a pink suitcase? Hearing Jianghu's introduction, Fu Yuan also nodded and said to Jianghu with a smile. It's said that men become bad when they are rich. Jianghu, you have become bad. As for Huang Yunfei, he also said with a smile. Chapter 586. We'll drop you off here first. My wedding is on Sunday, which is the day after tomorrow. If you're free the day after tomorrow, come over and help me out. After dropping Jianghu and Ai Xiaoxi off at Jianghu's house, Huang Yunfei specifically reminded him. Hearing Huang Yunfei's words, Jianghu also nodded, indicating that he understood. Although Huang Yunfei had a lot of money, some things could not be done with money. As his buddy, Huang Yunfei had to help out since he was back. For example, he had to shoot balloons and tie them up. The next morning, when they set off, he had to bring bricks and red paper to cover the manhole in his neighborhood. This was also what people in Bing City said. Jianghu had never attended a wedding in another city, so he did not know what people in other places said. On the morning of the wedding, he had to go downstairs to help out with the flowers and candy boxes. There were 8 pieces of candy and a pack of cigarettes in each candy box. There must be chocolate in the candy boxes. Of course, Huang Yunfei's father was the one who found someone to take care of all these things. Jianghu and the rest were only going to help out with the balloons and flowers. They did not need Jianghu and the rest to help out with the wedding. But on the morning of the wedding, they had to knock down the door. After talking to Jianghu, they saw that Jianghu and the others had been sitting in the car for a long time. They were also a bit tired. So, they left first, and Jianghu and Jiang Xiaoxi returned to Jianghu's house in Bing City. Of course, before sending Jianghu and the rest home, they went for a meal. This was also considered as taking advantage of Jianghu. The meal was authentic Harbu cuisine. The main dish was double-cooked pork. This was Jianghu's favorite dish. Of course, other than double-cooked pork, charred pork strips was also his favorite dish. Anyway, he was very interested in all kinds of dishes. After returning home, although Jianghu had bought the house, it had been empty for a long time, so there was a lot of dust. Therefore, there was no way to live in it directly. They had to clean it up first. However, with Jianghu's laziness, just him and Ai Xiaoxi were definitely not enough. After plugging in the water heater, Jianghu called Feng Yunshan, who had already returned, and told her to come over and help clean up the room. You only thought of me at this time. Jianghu and Feng Yunshan were junior high school classmates. When they were in junior high school, except for a few people who pursued the key points, most of them went to school according to the district, especially people like Jianghu who didn't study well. Feng Yunshan's home was only about 3 stops away from Jianghu's home. After receiving a call from Jianghu, she came directly. 20 minutes later, the water in the water heater was hot, and Feng Yunshan also came. Sister Chen, you are the main force. Looking at Feng Yunshan, Ai Xiaoxi couldn't help but say with a smile. You are happy this time. Jianghu accompanied you back home, but this kid can't accompany me back. Looking at the smile on Ai Xiaoxi's face, Feng Yunshan rolled her eyes at Jianghu, and then said to Ai Xiaoxi. Why? Hearing Feng Yunshan say this, Ai Xiaoxi couldn't help but ask curiously. What do you think? But her words only got a supercilious look from Feng Yunshan. Hearing her words, Ai Xiaoxi couldn't help but stick out her tongue. Feng Yunshan's home was indeed a little different. Ignoring the slow Ai Xiaoxi and Jianghu who pretended not to hear, Feng Yunshan looked around and found a pair of rubber gloves that Jianghu didn't know how long they had been there. She put them on, got some hot water, put a rag on, and helped to clean up. I have to admit that Feng Yunshan does have the genes of a good wife and mother. Whether it is cooking or cleaning up, she does a good job. Jianghu and the others came back at noon. In less than 2 hours, the room was cleaned up. After throwing the dusty sheets into the automatic washing machine and starting to wash them, other things had been done. Oh, I'm so tired. When I come back home, I'm like a little princess. My mother does everything, but when I come to your place, I become an old maid. Do you think it's easy for me? After cleaning up, Feng Yunshan lay directly on the sofa and complained to Jianghu, while Ai Xiaoxi smiled and leaned over to her legs, helping her massage them. At the same time, Jianghu was also a little embarrassed. He stroked her head and massaged her shoulders. Although her mouth was a little dirty, Feng Yunshan still liked helping Jianghu do the housework. Especially when Jianghu and Ai Xiaoxi massaged her together, the physical comfort was not as good as the comfort in her heart. What do you want to eat tonight? Our Yunshan is so tired. I will treat tonight. Let's go for a big meal. After massaging for a while, Jianghu looked at the time. Unknowingly, it was almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Although it was not time to eat, they could already order what they wanted to eat so that they could eat at that time. Hearing Jianghu's words, Feng Yunshan and Ai Xiaoxi on the other side both remembered. Before he mentioned it, they didn't pay attention. Now that Jianghu mentioned it, they were really hungry. So, they started to think about what to eat. To be honest, there were not many specialties in Bing City's cuisine. There were all kinds of cuisines in Bing City. But if you want something special, it was still not good enough. For example, seafood. Many people in Bing City like to eat seafood. Most of the seafood was imported from Dan City in the province. It tasted good and was not expensive. It was cheaper than the inland regions, but it was more expensive than the coastal regions. Other than seafood, the only food that could be considered delicious was fish. Black Dragon Province's fish was produced in Bing City. Because of the closure of the river during winter, the fish in other places could only grow for half a year. That was why the fish in Bing City could only grow for half a year. That was why the fish in Bing City was very firm and elastic. This was also the reason why tourists from other places would go to Bing City to eat fish. But Jianghu and Ai Xiaoxi were not lacking in seafood. After all, they had just returned from the coastal regions. When Jianghu was in Winthrop, he had treated seafood as his livelihood. So, they were not lacking in seafood. They had just eaten double-cooked pork in the afternoon, and Jianghu did not like to eat at night. So, they were in a dilemma. After thinking for a while, Jianghu suddenly clapped his hands and said to the two women, "Why don't we go back to eat?" Hearing Jianghu's words, the two women were stunned. Back to eat? They did not eat much, but there were many such restaurants in Bing City. Back to Bing City was Muslim cuisine. They did not serve pork. They mainly served beef and mutton. Most of the dishes were mutton. For example, the famous grilled mutton strips, boiled stomach, grilled mutton face, fried mirror, mutton eyes, mutton giblet soup, etc. Speaking of which, the roots of Chinese Muslim cuisine were in the vicinity of Shaanxi. There were many people who believed in this religion. It had to be popularized here. This ethnic minority had actually developed from a religion. In the previous dynasty, the previous government did not allow any nationalistic sentiments. Everyone was Chinese, regardless of ethnic group. It was a true integration of ethnic groups, but you were allowed to believe in this religion. After the establishment of the current imperial court, in order to appease these people, the current law was introduced. Of course, these things could not be said carelessly. Carelessly talking about it would cause them to be banned. So, it was just a simple introduction. Jianghu did not have any thoughts about other ethnic groups. He was just an ordinary Muslim. There was no psychological difference. And he also liked to eat this cuisine. After all, beef was better than pork. Okay. Hearing Jianghu's words, Feng Yunshan thought for a while and said. She had not eaten it for a while. Seeing that Feng Yunshan and Jianghu both agreed, Ai Xiaoxi, who had not eaten before, could only agree. Okay, then let's rest for a while and eat at 5 o'clock. Hearing that Ai Xiaoxi and Feng Yunshan both agreed, Jianghu also smiled and confirmed the time to eat. Then Jianghu carried Feng Yunshan up and lay on the sofa with her. Feeling the smell of Jianghu's body and Jianghu's strong body, Feng Yunshan's face slowly turned red. AI Xiaoxi looked at Jiang Hai and Feng Yunchen and couldn't help but hit them. Now was not the time to be tired of it. They still had to go out to eat later. If they started fighting now, who knows when they would be able to eat. In Bing City, it was different from other big cities. After 8:30 p.m., 90% of the restaurants would be closed, except for some restaurants that were open all night or some big hotels. However, most of the snack bars would be closed. They wouldn't be open until very late, like in the imperial capital, Shanghai, Chengdu, Fog City, and other places. If Jiang Hai and Feng Yunchen started fighting now, it was really hard to say when it would be over. Feeling AI Xiaoxi's intention, Jiang Hai and Feng Yunchen both smiled and didn't take any further action. They just lay there hugging each other. AI Xiaoxi also came over at this time and leaned on Jiang Hai's body. The three of them leaned on the sofa, listening to each other's heartbeat and the constant whirring sound of the washing machine. Old driver, wait for me. I am going to Kuan City. Old driver, wait for me. I am going to the provincial capital. Just when the three of them were being intimate, suddenly a strange song came from Jiang Hai's mobile phone. Well, this was Jiang Hai's ringtone that he had recently changed. This was a song that Jiang Hai heard in AI Xiaoxi's new car. He had to admit that it was a magical song. Picking up the phone, Jiang Hai glanced at it. The caller was none other than Qi Li. Hello, Qi Li, what's the matter? Seeing that it was Qi Li, Jiang Hai's mood was not as conflicted as before, and he picked it up directly. Chapter 587. Hello, are you back in Bing City now? After picking up the phone, she found that Jiang Hai's voice was very enthusiastic. Qi Li was stunned for a moment, but after a moment, she felt a little happy in her heart. It seems that her efforts will be rewarded. Then she asked Jiang Hai. Well, I'm back. I just finished cleaning up the room. Hearing Qi Li's words, Jiang Hai also said to her. Oh, I see. Then you open the door. I'm downstairs. I'll go up immediately. Hearing that Jiang Hai was indeed in Bing City, Qi Li was relieved and said to Jiang Hai. When he heard her words, Jiang Hai was stunned. Downstairs? What the hell? But at this time, Qi Li had already hung up the phone. Because they were very close to Jiang Hai's phone, AI Xiaoxi and Feng Yunchen also heard the content of the phone call clearly. The three of them looked at each other and couldn't help but feel a little confused. Cough, let's take a look. After speaking to the two women, Jiang Hai sat up from the pile of fragrant meat, walked to the door and opened the security door. Sure enough, as soon as the security door opened, he heard the sound of high heels clicking on the floor in the corridor. As the sound of high heels slowly approached, Qi Li's unchanging office lady outfit appeared in front of Jiang Hai. You are really here. Seeing Jiang Hai open the door, Qi Li couldn't help but show a smile on her face. Then she quickly walked upstairs, but when she walked to the door, she found that there was more than one person in Jiang Hai's room. In addition to him, AI Xiaoxi and Feng Yunchen were also there. When she saw them, Qi Li's face couldn't help but stiffen. You are also here. Looking at the two people in the room, Qi Li reluctantly smiled and said to them. Come in and talk, what are you standing here for? Hearing Qi Li's words, Jiang Hai didn't feel anything bad. He directly brought her a pair of slippers and let her in. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Qi Li's body trembled for no reason. This seemed to be the first time Jiang Hai took the initiative to invite her to his private space. Although there were two other women in this space, this was indeed the first time. Qi Li was usually full of the aura of a queen. However, she had always remembered these small details clearly. She didn't hesitate for too long in the face of Jiang Hai's invitation. She directly took off her pair of black high heels and stepped on Jiang Hai's slippers for the first time as she walked in. When she walked in, Jiang Hai didn't feel anything, but the competition between the three women had already begun. Did you guys come back together? When did you guys come back? Sitting on the sofa, Qi Li seemed to ask casually. I came back early. Jianghu and Xiaoxi just came back today. Hearing Qi Li's words, Feng Yunshan glanced at Ai Xiaoxi, who was already a little confused, and said with a smile. She was going to rely on Ai Xiaoxi to compete with Qi Li. But now it seems that Ai Xiaoxi is still far away. She can only stand up to Qi Li as the mistress. Oh, you just arrived today. You cleaned up the room as soon as you arrived. You are really amazing. Hearing Feng Yunshan's words, Qi Li also nodded, and then said a few words to Feng Yunshan. Listening to their words, no matter how stupid Jianghu was, he could tell that the atmosphere was not very good, but he was still a little confused about what they were talking about. For the first time, he felt that he did something wrong. By the way, Jianghu, come home with me later. You didn't come back during the Mid-Autumn Festival, and my mom has been asking. Since you came back on the 11th, you should go for a meal. Suddenly, Qi Li changed the topic and looked at Jianghu and said to him. Hearing that Qi Li suddenly changed the topic to him, Jianghu was also stunned. Then he also analyzed the meaning of Qi Li's words in his mind. It should be that, she already knew that he and Ai Xiaoxi went to the Mid-Autumn Festival. Since this had already happened, it was nothing. But today, he had to go to her house for dinner. After thinking it through, Jianghu glanced at Ai Xiaoxi and Feng Yunshan with some difficulty. If Jianghu went, these two girls definitely couldn't go, but they just said that they were going to eat halal. Jianghu really didn't have the habit of standing others up. It's okay, we can just fool them at home. Remember to come back early tonight. Hearing Qi Li's words and Jianghu's gaze, Ai Xiaoxi was more sensible. She also knew that Jianghu didn't belong to her alone. Since he had accompanied her for so many days, there was nothing wrong with accompanying Qi Li to deal with her mother now. Jianghu also told her about Qi Li, although what Qi Li did that year was really wrong. But after all, Jianghu owed her a debt. At this time, Ai Xiaoxi had already put herself in the position of Jianghu's girlfriend and began to look at the problem from Jianghu's perspective. Definitely. Hearing that Ai Xiaoxi relented, Jianghu also breathed a sigh of relief. She didn't make it difficult for him. Just as he was about to agree, Qi Li spoke before him. He probably won't come back tonight. You guys should go to bed early. It's not easy to go to my mother's place. It's impossible for me to stay there, but Jianghu came back to stay. After all, he is still my husband now. Directly interrupting Jianghu's words, Qi Li said with a serious face. Hearing Qi Li's words, Ai Xiaoxi couldn't help but be speechless. Shouldn't everyone take a step back in this matter? But this Qi Li had been taking a step back when facing Jianghu, but when facing them, this strong woman didn't have a trace of mercy. They were looking at her, and she was also looking at them. Let's see how the situation goes. Okay, Qi Li, let's go. This time, Jianghu realized that there was no other way. 3 women, 6 pairs of eyes, the gazes were like a high-voltage current, constantly intersecting in front of Jianghu. At the critical moment, Jianghu's courage once again played an important role. After awkwardly nodding apologetically to Ai Xiaoxi and Feng Yunshan, he said to Qi Li. Since he had agreed to go, Jianghu couldn't pretend that this didn't happen. Then let's go. Hearing that Jianghu was going to leave, Qi Li was like a general who had won a battle. She stood up, glanced at Feng Yunshan and Ai Xiaoxi, and walked towards the door. Jianghu also put on his coat, hugged the 2 girls, and walked out with Qi Li. When the door was closed, Ai Xiaoxi couldn't help but curl her lips. There's no other way. We are born weaker than that woman, but I believe that we can definitely win against that guy, and firmly snatched Jianghu in our hands. Looking at Ai Xiaoxi's appearance, Feng Yunshan was very relaxed. She lay back on the sofa, and then said to Ai Xiaoxi. Hearing her words, Ai Xiaoxi couldn't help but smile. This sister Chen is always so optimistic. This kind of mentality is really good. Sometimes she thinks a lot. Okay, okay, let's not care about her. What shall we eat tonight? Shaking her hair, Ai Xiaoxi threw this thought out of her mind, then sat opposite Feng Yunchen and said to Feng Yunchen. Sometimes she thinks too much. Now that she has finally made up her mind to face her relationship with Jianghu, then she shouldn't be affected by these things. It's useful to laugh happily now. She must laugh happily in the end. This is the real victory. Why don't we order a meal? How long have you not eaten hamburgers? After thinking for a while, Feng Yunchen suddenly said. Oh, it seems to have been a long, long time. In their line of work, these high-calorie things are absolutely not to be touched. Although later, Jianghu sent beef and the like, which made their bodies better, eating these foods won't make them fat. But the habits formed in the past are not so easy to change. Moreover, not eating these things is also good for the body. Then let's do it. Seeing that Ai Xiaoxi seemed to be very interested, Feng Yunchen picked up the phone and made a call. At this time, Jianghu didn't know what these two girls were going to eat at home. In fact, even if he knew, he wouldn't care. After coming downstairs with Qi Li, Jianghu was still thinking about what to do in the future. To be honest, Jianghu's character is really very troublesome. When he encounters something, he will always be a little indecisive. And in the face of temptation, he can't control himself, just like Aphrodite. A few months ago, Jianghu jumped high and said. Although he is not a gentleman, he won't take advantage of others. A rabbit doesn't eat the grass near its burrow, blah 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 blah, but now? The other party directly pounced on him and Jianghu was scared. Such a person can't survive more than 3 episodes in a TV series. Now, on one side is Qi Li, who he is about to solve the knot in his heart, and on the other side is Feng Yunchen and Ai Xiaoxi. Jianghu is also a little tangled. Don't worry, if you really want to come back tonight, then come back. Sitting in the car, looking at Jianghu's constipated expression, Qi Li's heart was a little lost, but she still said to Jianghu. Forget it, I'll listen to you tonight, but tomorrow, you have to go out with us. Shaking his head, Jianghu threw such thoughts out of his mind, then looked at Qi Li and said with a smile. I have to go together? Listening to Jianghu's words, Qi Li couldn't help but be a little confused. Is this okay? Of course, you have to come together. Tomorrow, the 4 of us will go out and play together. Well, let me think about what I want to play. Let's go to the amusement park. Looking at Qi Li's surprised and puzzled eyes, Jianghu said with certainty, and then he began to arrange where to go tomorrow. Hearing Jianghu's words, Qi Li couldn't help but chuckle. Hey, are you very young now? Do you want to go to the amusement park? Hearing Jianghu mention this place, Qi Li couldn't help but ask. Then where do you think we should go if we don't go to the amusement park? Hearing Qi Li's words, Jianghu shrugged. Well, let's go to the amusement park. After thinking about it, Qi Li really didn't know where the 4 of them would go together, so she listened to Jianghu. Chapter 588. Saying that it was an amusement park brought the relationship between the 2 of them closer. It made the atmosphere in the car less lifeless. Since they had opened the topic, Qi Li also began to ask Jianghu about Jianghu's manor in the United States. In her opinion, Jianghu's manor was very important. Not only was it Jianghu's property, but it was also the main source of meat for her 4 restaurants. These were all very important. There's no problem with the manor. I've already bought the cattle for next year. 15,000 bulls and 4,000 calves. Next year, I can sell about 2,000 calves, which adds up to 17,000 bulls. I've reserved 1,000 bulls for you. If it's not enough, you can tell me and I'll squeeze out some more for you. Hearing Qi Li ask about the cattle, Jianghu thought for a moment and said to Qi Li. In fact, when Jianghu kept the bulls, he was still dissatisfied with Qi Li. But because of Ai Xiaoxi's matter, Jianghu's hostility towards Qi Li suddenly lessened a lot. However, he had already reserved 1,000 cows. But if it wasn't enough, Jianghu could make some more. Okay, 1,000 bowls is enough. After all, I'm not going to open a branch. But in addition to beef, our restaurant's high-end goods are still lacking. I'm afraid that sooner or later, people will get tired of eating beef. Hearing Jianghu's words, Qili couldn't help but say with some hesitation. But Jianghu chuckled when he heard her words. I have a lot of high-end goods. Lobsters, all more than 30 catties, especially long sea cucumbers, double-headed abalones. By next year, the fish I raise will be almost ready to be produced. There are salmon, grouper, dragon crab, king crab, nine-joint shrimp, and so on. There is also tuna. Around July next year, there should also be a batch of Yangtze River grenadier fish and large yellow croaker fish. As soon as he heard Qi Li's words, Jianghu also calculated the high-end goods in his fishery. But after calculating, Jianghu was really stunned. There were really a lot of high-end goods in his fishery. Although Jianghu's fish are said to be farmed, except for the small seedlings, it can be said that these fish all imitate natural growth. Take the salmon for example. Jianghu's salmon is a 3-year Atlantic salmon. In fact, the salmon we traditionally talk about refers to the Atlantic salmon. There is no salmon in the Pacific Ocean. 90% of the salmon in Asia is actually chum salmon. This fish looks almost the same as salmon. The only difference is that chum salmon has small black spots on its dorsal fin, but salmon only has them on its body, not on its dorsal fin. Therefore, there were many businesses that called salmon XX salmon, such as red salmon and so on. But the problem is that it is not salmon just because you call it salmon. The difference is actually quite big. But there are too few people who know this, and the biggest exporter of salmon is Norway. In the early days, Norway's salmon couldn't be sold. This was because the main exporting country, Japan, ate sashimi. In the early days, salmon had to be cooked. They didn't eat raw salmon. Later on, Norway exported salmon to Japan. Gradually, they started to eat raw salmon. The most popular time was in the 1980s. Norway exported a large amount of seafood to Japan. After implementing the Japan Plan for 15 years, Japan's habit of eating raw salmon was completely changed. Later, Wuxia also became the main force of eating salmon. But this fish is far from being a threat, but it is really not easy to catch it. Its living range is very limited, and it only lives in the Atlantic Ocean. After all, it is difficult to fool people who understand the meaning of chum salmon. It is precisely because of this that now in the Pacific Ocean, Wuxia, Japan, and South Korea are eating farmed salmon. But generally, farmed salmon can't eat wild shrimp and plankton, so its meat is white. If you want to turn it red, you need to feed it artificial astaxanthin. But if you feed it too much, it will become red. If you feed it too little, it won't be sold at a high price. So it is still very complicated. Moreover, if you feed it too much, Jianghu doesn't know whether it is harmful to the human body. But he doesn't need to feed it anyway, because there are a lot of small shrimps in his fish farm. Because Jianghu's seaweeds absorb spiritual energy, just like the pasture in Jianghu's manor, they naturally have spiritual energy. This spiritual energy attracts a large number of plankton that feed on these seaweeds. And these plankton attract a large number of creatures that feed on these things. In addition to the small squid and small octopus that Jianghu raises, Jianghu's fish farm has a large number of Arctic sweet shrimps. These shrimps swim here on their own. The number is unusually large, forming the bottom of the biological chain. At least, the fish in Jianghu's fish farm are difficult to finish. The salmon was already 3 years old when they bought it, so it wasn't a problem for them to eat these things. Recently, Jianghu's salmon and the like have grown quite big. It is estimated that it will not be a problem to sell them next year. Of course, Jianghu can also choose to let these fish swim back to the river he built to lay eggs, so that he can get more salmon. But there is a problem, that is, the salmon will die after laying eggs, then it can't be sold at a high price. So this is a trade-off problem, but Jianghu believes that Edward Anderson and the others will solve it. I didn't expect you to have so many good things. It seems that after a while, I will have to check again to see what can be used in my restaurant. Hearing that there are so many good things in Jianghai's fish farm, Qili couldn't help but be stunned. She didn't know that there are so many fun things in Jianghai's manor. Lobster, abalone, sea cucumber, king crab, tuna, salmon, grouper, dragon crab, plus the beef provided by Jianghai. All of a sudden, Qili found that it was just around the corner for her to dominate the high-level catering industry in the capital. If you want to go, you are welcome at any time. Hearing her words, Jianghai smiled. Although Qili may be a little embarrassed when she sees Aphrodite and the others, if she wants to go, then Jianghai won't mind. Okay, but it's already November now. There is nothing fun to go there. When will you fish? Hearing what Jianghai said, Qili also seriously thought about it. In fact, to be honest, she wants to go with Jianghai now. But the problem is that she can't, because the Qi family still depends on her to helm it. Now that she goes to Jianghai, it means that she has to give up control of the Qi family, which she can't agree to. Wuxia people and foreigners have a little essential difference. That is the desire to control. For example, if a foreigner establishes a company, shares, or something, they must firmly hold it in their hands, but for the operation and management of the company, they are more inclined to find a professional manager or someone they cultivated themselves, give him a certain proportion of dividends, tie this person to their own chariot, and let him manage the company. For example, Pra Walton, who is very familiar with Jianghai, is now the Walton family's Walmart, managed by an outsider. But the people in China are different. When a person in China establishes a company, he must be in charge of it himself. When his control is over, even if his son or daughter is a waste, a prodigal, or a moron, this company will definitely be passed on to his child. He will not find a manager and give out some of his due dividends. More than 95% of the enterprises in China are all family businesses, and the Qi family is the same. If he wants her to give up, she will think about it later, at least for now. It is impossible. Probably in March, April, or May where I am. You have to ask my fisherman for the specific time. Last year, when Jianghai was raising fish, he had heard that it would take at least a year to raise these fishes. If 1 year wasn't too long, then it would take 2 years. However, they didn't think that Jianghai had something to do with spiritual qi. So, these fish raised for half a year are not smaller than the fish raised for 1.5 years by others. If they are raised for another half a year, it will be almost the same as the fish raised for 2 or 3 years by others. When the time comes, there will be no problem at all. Okay, I will call you in advance when the time comes. I will definitely go when the fish are released. Hearing Jianghai's words, Qili said seriously. At this time, the car slowly entered Qi Li's neighborhood. After parking the car in front of Lu Li's villa, Jianghai also got out of the car with some things. These things are the beef in his manor. He sent it to Fu Yuan through express delivery, and Fu Yuan brought it to him today. He left some at home, preparing to eat it with Feng Yunchen and Ai Xiaoxi in the next few days. The rest is brought to Qi Li's mother. After all, she is his official mother-in-law in name. When Jianghai and Qili walked into the villa, they found that the people in the villa are busy. The servants in the villa, as well as Qi Li's mother, are cleaning up the dishes and carrying the dishes. It is very lively. Hey, Xiao Jiang, you are back. Take a seat, it's time to eat. Hearing the sound of the door opening, Qi Li's mother saw Jianghai immediately, and then said to Jianghai warmly. Especially when she saw the beef that Jianghai brought over, her eyes could not help but shine. She walked quickly to Jianghai and took the beef directly with a smile on her face. In fact, during the new year, Jianghai gave her a lot of beef, but at that time, Qi Li's mother did not know the price of the beef. She thought that Jianghai was just showing his filial piety, so she did not care about it. Later on, after eating Jianghai's beef, she felt that it tasted very good, so she called Qi Li and asked where Jianghai bought his beef. At that time, she learned from Qi Li that Jianghai's beef could not be bought outside. Chapter 589. To be honest, Qi Li's mother was not willing to eat beef that cost more than 2,000 yuan per kilogram. If it weren't for the fact that her family was really rich, she might have sent the beef to Qi Li and let her sell it. But at this time, she also knew that her son-in-law, who seemed to be a little honest and had no other abilities, had grown up. Unknowingly, she had already grown up. Originally, she felt a little apologetic about letting her daughter marry Jianghai because at that time, she also felt that Jianghai was not worthy of her daughter. Speaking of Jianghai, a year ago, Jianghai did not seem to have any advantages. Although he was not short, he was not very tall either. His appearance was average, and he did not encounter any earth-shattering events, nor did he have any money, nor did he know how to talk, nor did he cause any trouble. He had no potential to speak of. What could an unemployed person who graduated from a third-rate university have? The only advantage was that Jianghai was quite honest, and she knew him well. She pulled him out at the critical moment to shut those people's mouths. Originally, she also thought that if Qi Li could live with Jianghai, she would let her live with Jianghai. If not, she would just divorce him. This could be seen from the fact that Jianghai had come to her place during the new year, and her attitude wasn't very lively. Generally speaking, the more a mother-in-law looked at her son-in-law, the happier she would be, unless the mother-in-law really did not like the son-in-law. But now it seemed that Jianghai was really hiding something. According to Qi Li, the money he earned from selling beef for a year was not lower than the total value of the Qi group. This was just the money he earned from selling beef for a year. What about next year? The year after that? It was scary to think about it. In addition, Jianghai provided her with the beef, so Qi Li's mother liked him more and more. "Hey, Mom, this is some beef from my manor. If you like it, just tell me and I'll send it to you." Seeing Qi Li's mother being so enthusiastic about his beef, Jianghai also smiled. It seemed that his mother-in-law was slowly changing. After a few simple greetings, Jianghai and Qi Li sat at the dining table. The dining table was not small, but there were only 3 people sitting at it: Jianghai, Qi Li, and Qi Li's mother. Other than them, there was no one else, but the table was full of dishes. "Xiao Yi, come and sit with us." Seeing that all the dishes were served, the girl that Jianghai had seen twice seemed to be called Xiao Yi. She nodded and was about to leave, but before she could leave, she was stopped by Qi Li's mother. "Auntie, it's better not. Let's go to the kitchen and have a bite." Hearing Qi Li's mother's words, the girl named Xiao Yi couldn't help but feel a little conflicted. As mentioned before, Xiao Yi's father was very close to Qi Li's father. Later, there was an accident, and her father passed away. Then, the Qi family brought her home and raised her as their own daughter. However, perhaps because of the shock, this girl's reaction was slow and she was very stubborn. After coming here, she thought that she couldn't live here for free. She had to be a servant and take care of the Qi family. It seemed that she liked this job very much. Of course, no one in the Qi family really treated her as a servant. Although she was wearing servant's clothes, for Qi Li, she was still her sister. "Well, let's eat together. You haven't eaten with your brother-in-law yet." Qi Li stood up and pulled Xiao Yi to sit beside her. She then said to Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi seemed to be in a dilemma. Ah. Hearing Qi Li's words, the girl who still had some resistance couldn't help but feel a little confused. Then, she said slowly. Looking at her appearance, Jianghai also smiled. "This girl is really quite interesting. Okay, let's eat. If we don't eat, the food will get cold. Here is Jianghai's beef. This is very rare." Looking at the happy scene in front of her, Qi Li's mother also said with a smile. Then, she motioned for everyone to start eating. Jianghai didn't stand on ceremony. After Qi Li's mother started eating, Jianghai also picked up some food to eat. As for Qili and Jingxiu, they were also eating and chatting. The meal was still very harmonious. Unknowingly, the meal was finished. However, there were still a lot of dishes left. Naturally, these were cleaned up by the servants. Jiang Hai and the other three sat in the living room. Jingxiu made a pot of tea. Jiang Hai and the others watched TV, drank tea, and chatted at the same time. Unknowingly, the sky gradually darkened. In Ice City in October, the sky turned dark very early. To be exact, the sky turned dark very early all year round. During the hottest period of summer, the longest day could only last until 8 o'clock in the evening. It was completely different from the central and western Huaxia where the sky was still bright after 9 o'clock in the evening. In October, the sky turned dark even earlier. After 7 o'clock, it was already very dark outside. Therefore, there was really no concept of time. Unknowingly, it was already past 9 o'clock in the evening. Xiao Jiang just came back today, right? Then you must be a little tired. I have already prepared your rooms. You can go to sleep directly later. Glancing at her watch, Qi Li's mother also stood up. She was preparing to go to bed. Old people, especially women like Qi Li's mother, were originally in poor health. Moreover, they were too rich. Therefore, in order to avoid being targeted, she usually lived in seclusion. Things like square dancing would never happen to her. After all, the Qi group's assets were tens of billions. Wealth moved people's hearts. Who knew if there were good people outside? What if she was kidnapped by others? Therefore, Qi Li's mother went to bed very early. Of course, she also woke up very early. However, she only walked around the courtyard or the neighborhood. She also needed someone to accompany her. Basically, it was Jingxiu who accompanied her to walk around. Okay. Hearing Qi Li's mother's words, Jiang Hai couldn't help but be stunned for a moment because he still wanted to go back now. However, after his waist was poked by Qi Li, Jiang Hai couldn't help but stand up. While watching Qi Li's mother return to her room, he also responded awkwardly. After watching Qi Li's mother close the door, Jiang Hai looked at Qi Li helplessly. What are you looking at? Let's go to bed. Seeing Jiang Hai's gaze, Qi Li's face couldn't help but blush a little, but she was still tough. She glanced at Jiang Hai, took the initiative to hold Jiang Hai's arm, and led Jiang Hai to the second floor. The largest bedroom on the second floor was Jiang Hai and Qi Li's home here. Unfortunately, they had never lived here once. Today was an exception. Walking into this room, the first thing that caught Jiang Hai's eyes was a big bed. There was a huge red bedsheet on top of the big bed. The middle of the bedsheet was drawn into a heart shape. There was a double happiness symbol rusted inside, and there was a mandarin duck pattern below. Needless to say, it was obvious that this was only used for weddings. Looking at this big bed, Jiang Hai couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. This scene was a bit familiar. However, in the original plot, Qi Li should say to him coldly, "You go to sleep." Then she would go next door to sleep for the night. However, the current script was clearly different from the original. Qi Li didn't directly leave Jiang Hai here, nor did she leave. Instead, she walked into the room before Jiang Hai. In front of Jiang Hai, she didn't care about her image and directly lay on the bed. Jiang Hai even saw the looming black under her skirt. Seeing this scene, Jiang Hai couldn't help but turn his face to the side, then sat on a chair in the room, and turned on the TV. Seeing Jiang Hai's appearance, Qi Li also turned around on the bed and looked at Jiang Hai. "Aren't you going to take a shower first?" Seeing that Jiang Hai was staring at the TV while glancing at her from time to time, Qi Li smiled and said to him. Hearing Qi Li's words, Jiang Hai also nodded and walked into the bathroom next to him. But after going in, he found that he didn't have any clothes to change into. The jacket is fine, but what about the underwear? He didn't put any clothes here. If he washed this thing now, what would he wear after washing it? But if he didn't wash it? If he didn't want to wash it, then he wouldn't wash it. After struggling for a while, Jianghu took a shower in the big bathroom. It was still very simple for a man to take a shower. He washed his hair with the hair foam, simply wiped his body, and then rinsed it. At least, Jianghu took a shower like this. In less than 10 minutes, Jianghu had already come out, but when he came out, he found that Qili had already changed her clothes. At this time, Qili had already changed from the almost unchanging office lady clothes and changed into pink pajamas. But this pajamas seemed to be a little too small. Not only was there a huge V shape on the top, but the bottom of the pajamas only covered the bottom. The length of the hem barely covered her underwear. Her two straight, slender long legs were exposed in front of Jianghu. Coupled with Qili's pretty good looks, Jianghu once again shifted his gaze. Seeing Jianghu coming out, Qili greeted him with a smile and looked at Jianghu and said, "You are done showering." "Ah, you take a shower." When Jianghu heard Qili's words, he didn't dare to look at her now. Jianghu bypassed Qili and went to the sofa next to him. He didn't dare to sit on the bed, so he just watched TV. Qili looked at Jianghu's reaction and chuckled. She walked into the bathroom and hummed while taking a shower. Although Jianghu's eyes were watching TV, his ears heard Qili's humming and the sound of water. To be honest, it was quite torturous, but fortunately, Qili didn't take too long. About 20 minutes later, she came out of the bathroom. Jianghu glanced at her unconsciously and couldn't help but feel his heart beating faster. At this time, although Qili was still wearing pajamas, it was obvious that she had removed the vest and underpants that were supposed to be under the pajamas. This scene was a bit fierce. Chapter 590. Is there anything good on TV? Looking at Jianghu's slightly sluggish eyes, Qili slowly walked over. While wiping the water droplets on her hair, she climbed onto the bed casually. Under Jianghu's gaze, she sat cross-legged and looked at the TV in the distance. At this time, under Jianghu's gaze, Qili's 2 points and the forest below were completely visible, but she didn't seem to care at all. Cough, I don't think so. To be honest, Jianghu really didn't have any intention of watching TV at this time. He just turned on the TV casually because he didn't know what to do. If there's nothing good to watch, then let's sleep. Hearing Jianghu's words, Qili tilted her head and looked at Jianghu with a smile. Hearing what she said, Jianghu also nodded. Come up and sleep. Seeing Jianghu nod, Qili also patted the position next to her and said to Jianghu, Forget it, I'll just sleep on the sofa for a night. Hearing Qili's words, Jianghu gently pushed his glasses and took a deep breath. It was better to be calm at this time. Sleep on the sofa? Are you afraid that I will eat you? Really, you are not cute at all. You are my husband, do you know that? Hearing Jianghu's words, Qili suddenly said to Jianghu. Hearing Qili's words, Jianghu couldn't help but be speechless. And, the most important thing is, if my mother knows that you are sleeping on the sofa, wouldn't we be exposed? After hesitating, Qili looked at Jianghu and said faintly. After that, she lowered her head. She didn't say such words. Well, okay. Looking at Qili's appearance, Jianghu's head was also a little confused. He didn't think about it. He was sleeping on the sofa, how could Qili's mother know? But at this time, there was no such thought in his mind. Inexplicably, he turned off the TV and then lay on the side of the big bed with his clothes on. Do you sleep with your clothes on? Leaning her head next to Jianghu's ear, Qili hugged Jianghu from behind, and then whispered in his ear. Hearing Qili's words, Jianghu didn't know what to say. I heard that sleeping in level 1 is very good for a person's body, but I used to live alone. I was really afraid that if something happened, I wouldn't have a place to escape. But now, I have you by my side, so I want to give it a try. Seeing that Jianghu didn't speak, Qili whispered in a low voice. Are you really ready? To be honest, if a woman threw herself into his arms like this, Jianghu would definitely do it first, but the woman behind him was Qi Li, so Jianghu had to suppress this thought. After taking a deep breath and calming down the anxiety in his heart, Jianghu said to Qi Li, "What is there to prepare for? I am your wife, you are my husband, Isn't it normal to do this?" Hearing Jianghu's words, Qi Li hugged Jianghu even tighter because she could hear that Jianghu was still hesitating. Feeling Qi Li's movement behind him, Jianghu hesitated for a moment before saying to Qi Li, "To tell you the truth, I am indebted to your Qi family. I have never denied this point. After all, you extended a helping hand when I needed it the most. If the Qi family has any orders, as long as I can do it, I will definitely help. As for me, I admit, I originally had a very good impression of you." Feeling Qi Li's movement behind him, Jianghu hesitated for a moment before speaking to Qi Li. Originally, when Qi Li heard Jianghu say that he was just grateful to the Qi family, her body trembled for no reason, but after hearing the following words, she hugged Jianghu even tighter. And I'm saying if we could live together like an ordinary husband and wife, maybe we wouldn't be like today. Of course, that's not very possible. After all, back then, I really wasn't worthy of your attention. Feeling Qi Li's movement, Jianghu sighed. He knew what level he was at back then. Why would Qi Li like him? Just like what Qi Li's mother said, Jianghu was more than a year ago. He was not handsome, his family background was not good, he had no potential, and he did not know how to speak well. If such a man had found an ordinary woman to marry and have children with, his life would have passed. However, he had married Qi Li, the daughter of heaven. Not to mention Qi Li, anyone would think that the two were actually not a match, it was that simple. Cinderella could marry a prince, but the stinky hooligan married a princess. This was the most realistic problem. Hearing Jianghu's slightly self-deprecating words, Qi Li suddenly hugged Jianghu tightly and said seriously, "But now you are not the same as before. Although I don't know why I like you, I am very sure that what I like is not your money, not your bull, but you as a person. If you still have me in your heart, then let's start over. I think you understand what I am talking about, Feng Yunqian, Xiaoxi. I can tell you, in addition to them, I actually have other women outside, such as Aphrodite. I cannot give them any status, but I can't leave them alone and start over with you. You can say that I am greedy, or that I am a scumbag, but I am indeed a scumbag. In the face of temptation, my resistance is not strong, because I don't know what I am holding on to in my heart." Hearing Qi Li's words, Jianghu brought this matter to the surface for the first time. Jianghu would not give up on these women. This was also a big problem for him to have a serious friendship. If it was more than a year ago, Qi Li and Jianghu said, "Let's be together," Jianghu would be conflicted, but if something really happened, he would still be wholeheartedly with Qi Li. He could also endure the temptation of the outside world, because he was a man with a wife. But now, this wife of his was almost non-existent. He already wanted to start a new relationship. Under such circumstances, it was inevitable for him to indulge himself a little. But now that things had already happened, some women could be broken, but some, he could not. Because if he was really good to only one woman and turned his back on other women, then in the eyes of other women, he was also the one who betrayed them. Jianghu was unwilling to abandon these people. This was the most troublesome thing. Hearing Jianghu's words, Qi Li's hand, which was originally holding Jianghu, could not help but loosen a little. She wanted to reconcile with Jianghu, she wanted to be with Jianghu, she wanted to give herself to Jianghu tonight. But she must think carefully about what Jianghu said. Jianghu had more than one woman. This was different from breaking up with a mistress. Perhaps at this time, in Jianghu's heart, the position of those women was much more important than her. There were no fetters between them. If she really wanted to start a relationship with Jianghu, it meant that she had to accept those. Unless she was just playing with Jianghu, then it did not matter. But she did not know if she was ready to share Jianghu with other women. Just like Xiaoxi, she had always regarded herself as Jianghu's legal wife. It seemed that as long as she came back, those snakes, insects, rats, and ants would all run away. But now, these snakes, insects, rats, and ants had gone deep into this home, and Jianghu had become one with them. If she wanted to find the equality and balance between men and women, it would be a little too presumptuous. Think about it carefully. This is also a problem between us. I'll leave this problem to you to decide. Whether we stay as we are, be friends, or go one step further, it's all up to you. Jianghu felt Qi Li's hesitation behind him, so he gently patted her hand, sat up from the bed again, and went to lie down on the sofa. This time, Qi Li did not pull Jianghu because she also felt that she really had to think about these things carefully. Jianghu was not willing to touch her when he was completely undecided. This was Jianghu's promise to her, and also his protection for her, so she really had to think about it carefully. On the other side, Jianghu, who came to the sofa, suddenly felt as if he had become a saint. Jianghu did not like this kind of saint appearance. Maybe it was because of the previous feelings, or maybe Jianghu was really interested in Qi Li. He did not want to do anything excessive in such a situation. Qi Li was different from Aphrodite and the others. Aphrodite and the others originally only wanted to stay by Jianghu's side, that was all. She was different from Feng Yunshen. Feng Yunshen had already made it very clear that she wanted to be Jianghu's lover on the first day she met Jianghu. She was also different from Pra Walton and Selena Gomez. The relationship between the three of them was probably just that of friends. They did not think of marrying Jianghu, and Jianghu did not think of making any promises to them. It was that simple. The only one who was similar to Qi Li was Ai Xiaoxi, but Ai Xiaoxi was just preparing to sell herself at the beginning, just like Jianghu in the beginning. She sold herself for money, and the subsequent ideas came later. The story between Jianghu and Qi Li was far from simple as it seemed. The bond between them was very deep. Finally, Jianghu took a deep breath and fell asleep on the sofa. He took one last look at Qi Li, who was lying on the bed. Chapter 591. Hiss. Sitting in the car, Jianghu moved his arms, but he felt that his whole body was sore. In fact, this was also his own fault. How can his body not be sore after sleeping on the sofa for a night? Even if he has 4 times the physical fitness. You just want to do it. There is a bed, but you don't sleep. You sleep on the sofa. You sleep on the bed, so you must do that with me. Looking at Jianghu's miserable grin, Qi Li couldn't help but pat him. Looking at Jianghu's comment, she was really angry and funny. Aren't you afraid that you can't control yourself? Rolling his eyes at Qi Li, Jianghu said snappily. Hee hee. Hearing Jianghu's words, Qi Li's mouth unconsciously raised. Jianghu is afraid that he can't control himself. It means that Jianghu likes me and is very interested in my body. Otherwise, he won't be unable to control himself. Hearing her laughter, Jianghu glanced at her snappily. She is really gloating. Okay, we are almost at your house. Looking at Jianghu leaning there, Qi Li said to him. Now Qi Li was driving her family's car. It wasn't a good car, but it wasn't particularly bad. It was a fake SUV from Infinity, QX50. The top version was less than 500,000 yuan. For people like Qi Li, this car was just a car to drive when going out to play, and it couldn't go to places that were too outdoor. This kind of car was the so-called city SUV. Such a car couldn't be sold at a high price in the United States because everyone drove MPVs and sedans in the city. SUVs were driven when they wanted to go outside. Not many people drove such a car in the city. But in Wuxia, this kind of city SUV was still very popular. They liked to drive such a car in the city. Okay. Hearing Qi Li's words, Jianghu also took out his phone and called Ai Xiaoxi and Feng Yunshen. After making the call, Ai Xiaoxi and Feng Yunshen quickened their steps. When the car stopped downstairs of Jianghu's house, Ai Xiaoxi and Feng Yunshan were already waiting for Jiang Hai and Qi Li. Seeing the car driving over, the two women opened the back door and got in. When they got in, they couldn't help shivering. It was October in Bing City, and it was indeed cold. It could be said that this was the coldest time in Bing City, as the temperature would drop below 10 degrees Celsius in the morning and evening. Although it was still hot at noon, it was difficult to reach 20 degrees Celsius. It was only 5 or 6 degrees Celsius in the morning and evening. At this time, Bing City's winter was jealous of the heaters south of the Yangtze River. The heaters had not started heating yet. It could be said that the first half of October and the second half of April were the coldest times in Bing City. After this period, it would be much warmer. Feng Yunshan and Ai Xiaoxi's physical fitness was good. After all, they had been eating Jiang Hai's beef. But they couldn't stand the cold. Moreover, these two girls were models, so they didn't wear much clothes. After standing downstairs for less than 3 minutes, they were almost freezing. When they got into the car, they kept rubbing their hands and shaking their legs, hoping to warm up. It's so cold. We can just play at home. Why are we going to the amusement park? Looking at Jiang Hai and Qi Li in front, Feng Yunshan said unhappily. To be honest, this kind of weather was the best time to play at home. This is Jiang Hai's idea. Ask him. Hearing Feng Yunshan's words, Qi Li shrugged her shoulders, indicating that she couldn't help. Huaxia women's nature was to listen to men. Of course, there were a few exceptions. We haven't been to the amusement park together. Let's go and play. Hearing Qi Li's words, Jiang Hai also turned his head and said to the two girls behind him. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, the two girls couldn't help but roll their eyes at him. I have been there with you before. We went there several times when we were in junior high school. Jiang Hai just finished his words. Feng Yunshan had already said. Okay. When they were in junior high school, they did go to the amusement park many times. She went there with you before? No, then I have to go with you. But who would have thought that when Feng Yunshan's voice fell, Qi Li immediately added a sentence. Feng Yunshan and Jiang Hai had been to the amusement park, so she had to go too. That's right, I want to go too. Well, at this time, Ai Xiaoxi also said. Feng Yunshan didn't expect that her words directly smashed her own foot. She rolled her eyes at the two sisters who were not firm in their stance. She could only give in helplessly. 3 votes against 1 vote, and she was not so resistant to going there to play. Okay, let's go to the amusement park. Seeing that no one had any objections, Jiang Hai smiled and patted the front passenger seat and said to Qi Li. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Qi Li also stepped on the accelerator and drove forward. Bing City's economy was not very developed. Based on China's GDP ranking, Bing City was only ranked 27th. It was not considered a first-tier city in China. That's why Bing City did not have any amusement parks like most cities in China. Like Happy Valley, which was common in all cities in China, Bing City did not have any amusement parks. Bing City did not have any amusement parks like Happy Valley. There was only one Bing City amusement park in Bing City, and it was very old. But obviously, this type of amusement park could not attract many customers. But the people in Bing City had no other choice, so they could only go there. The location of this amusement park was quite far from Jiang Hai's house. There were 3 landmark buildings there. In front of them was Bing City's biggest temple, Ji Temple. Next to Ji Temple was Electronics World, which was Bing City's biggest computer installation facility. Behind them was Bing City's amusement park, which Jiang Hai and the rest were going to today. After driving to the amusement park, Jiang Hai and the rest did not say anything. They bought the tickets and entered the amusement park. The weather was getting warmer, and it was November. There were still many people here. Many adults brought their children to the amusement park, and they were having fun. After Jiang Hai and the rest entered the amusement park, Qi Li, Feng Yunshan, and Ai Xiaoxi attracted a lot of attention. Basically, when they walked past, they would attract a lot of attention. Qili was the type of cool female CEO. Feng Yunshan had the image of a perfect royal sister, while Ai Xiaoxi had the image of a young and beautiful girl. As they walked by, they really attracted a lot of attention. Of course, there were also people who tried to talk to them, but when they saw Jiang Hai's height of more than 190 centimeters and his rather sturdy build, most of them withered away. And those who dared to come over were ignored by the four people, embarrassing them to death. After entering the amusement park, the three girls who did not like the amusement park went crazy. Roller coasters, bumper cars, things that were similar to torrential rush, and haunted houses. They all went one round. Jiang Hai also had a good time. The best amusement park that Jiang Hai had ever been to was the largest Disneyland in Oakland. But compared to these things abroad, the domestic amusement park was closer to life. Unknowingly, Jiang Hai and the rest played until 1 p.m. The three girls were a little hungry, and Jiang Hai was almost done. Since there was nothing else to play, Jiang Hai waved his hand and went to eat. After the four of them left the amusement park, they were ready to eat. At this time, it was up to Jiang Hai. If it was about other things, Jiang Hai might be very ordinary. For example, ask him where to buy beautiful clothes. Ask him where to find bars and nightclubs. Jiang Hai did not know these things, but if you asked him where to find delicious food, then you asked the right person. Jiang Hai asked the three girls what they wanted to eat, and they decided to go to Central Street to eat buns. The steamed buns that Jiang Hai mentioned were called Kaifeng steamed buns. It was originally a state-run restaurant. The biggest feature of the so-called state-run restaurant was that the waiters were quite good. If you don't want to eat, you don't have to. They were all paid by the state, just like the current civil servants. Their attitude was quite bad, and the environment was also very ordinary. In the summer, the steamers that were thrown outside would have flies on them. However, the main reason why people came to eat here was because the steamed buns here were really delicious. When the buns were popular, people even had to line up at the same table. This restaurant was really good. In Bing City, there were only 2 restaurants that had the best buns. One was this restaurant, and the other was Gubili buns. Of course, some people said that Gubili buns were not delicious, and this was the truth. However, the stuffing had to be differentiated. The fresh shrimp stuffing in Gubili's steamed buns tasted pretty good, and the steamed buns in this restaurant's soup dumplings were pretty good. Most importantly, the restaurant had been converted into a private one, so the sanitary conditions were a lot better. After parking the car here and paying the parking fee, Jiang Hai's group of 3 walked into the bun shop. Because it was changed to a private business, there was no such thing as sharing tables. The originally simple steamed buns were now added with stir-fried dishes. It was more like a restaurant than a simple steamed bun shop. After Jiang Hai's group of 4 sat down, they ordered 4 trays of steamed buns and then some dishes. Of course, Jiang Hai's order of double-cooked pork was inevitable. Maybe it was because when Jiang Hai and the others arrived, it was already around 2:00 in the afternoon. At this time, there were no guests, so the dishes were served quite quickly. Not long after, 4 trays of steamed buns and stir-fried dishes were served. After the steamed buns were served, the 3 girls couldn't wait to pick them up. But when their chopsticks touched them, the steamed buns with very thin skin leaked out. Seeing this scene, the 3 girls couldn't help but look at Jiang Hai. What's going on? Their buns are like this. The skin is very thin, so when you pick it up, you have to pick it up. After you put it into the bowl, you have to cool it first, and then suck out the soup before eating the buns. Otherwise, you will be scalded. Looking at the gazes of the 3 women, Jiang Hai smiled. Under their gazes, he picked up a steamed bun and put it on the plate that he had already prepared. After blowing on the steamed bun and taking a sip of the soup, he began to eat the steamed bun. When the steamed bun entered his mouth, Jiang Hai couldn't help but nod. Delicious. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.